Peace to the gods. Peace to the gods. Yusufel here. What's going on, everyone? Let's get to it. Y'all know what it is. The phone lines are open. Call in at 563. Okay, the phone lines are open. 563-999-3616 is the call in number. How to operate in the private is a question I get all the time. If you just your first time joining me, I just get right to it. Make sure I got everybody. Yep. Somebody said there's no First Amendment here. Your comments get ghosted all the time. They don't like what I have to say. I don't erase anybody's comments. There's only me too. I'm doing it by myself. So there's no comments. I just looked over there. What do you mean your comments get erased over here? I've never erased your comment. I don't even know who you are. There's nobody else working but me. So if somebody's gonna get rid of your comment, now if you in the comment section and you doing something like keep repeating something over and over again and just being a troll, I'm gonna immediately kick you out. They do give us controls like that. I'm not gonna take your comments off. I'm gonna eliminate you out of the comment section. But that's usually the only reason I would do that. But I don't know if you're referring to me or someone else, but I don't just remove people's comments. You'll see all the war hawks in Trump's administration. I don't see any hawks in Trump's administration. I don't see any hawks in Trump's administration. I see people who are dedicated to getting jobs done. Let's talk a little bit about civics as it relates to the Trump administration and a lot of individuals out there that are talking about things. First and foremost, Donald Trump is a patriot and he loves his country. Okay. And he's been watching what has been going on to this country for many, many, many years. You can go back and watch old videos of him where the same political views that he has now were the same political views that he had then. And his number one concern was the fact that um, how when you look at us and face off with other countries and the trade agreements that we got with them, they get to take advantage of us. And everybody's just taking advantage of us. We become a nation of consumers. It's service oriented, the economy, or some sort of speculation with Wall Street or something like that. But there's no manufacturing going on in this country. This is the same issue that was plaguing Great Britain and France, by the way, in World War One when they attacked Germany. Is because they were involved in speculation and there wasn't any manufacturing going on, and Germany was becoming a manufacturing powerhouse. So in the United States, we have that same thing going on here as well. All the industry has left the country and gone to other countries for cheaper labor, and then they take those same products and sell them back into the United States, but we're not allowed to sell anything in their country. How's that something? How are you going to like that? How are you going to allow illegal immigrants to come into the country who are undocumented? That means they don't have a social security number. So there's been no allocation of funds made for them up on Capitol Hill from the Treasury. So we have people just coming into our economy, just getting jobs, taking money out of the economy, because a lot of them go back to their country every year, especially Hispanics. They go back to Mexico every year and cross the border. It's not hard to cross the border. And these things are going on. So I see as a lack of understanding of basic civics in the country, and people think that, just breaking the law, period, just they came in illegally. That should just be the end of the discussion. There isn't anything else to discuss. Get illegal immigrants out the country. They're not going to let you in their country. I've been traveling all over the place and they ain't letting us come in their country illegally. Let me tell you that. It says Thank you, LRD Mobile. Five. Thank you for the 5 bones. I appreciate that. Final response in Ohio Supreme Court 24 habeas corpus. Take a look. Respondents are getting 175 million. You petitioning for 107 million. You ain't got nothing yet. You can ask for whatever amount of money you want to ask for. That's not going to induce me to read it. I see stuff like that all the time. I'll check it out though. It says, in your opinion, in your opinion, will as business goes, will class action suits be an angle of relief? And no, I stay away from class action lawsuits because all the way back when we were doing the foreclosure debacle, the attorneys were trying to get all these people together because there was so many people suing on foreclosure. What they were trying to do is do a class action lawsuit and give everybody on one case, so you can all lose on that one case, and then they don't have to address all these individual foreclosures anymore because people were doing these produce the note arguments. So I'm not interested in being part of a group. If I'm going to prosecute my matter, I'll do it myself. I don't want to be part of a huge group of individuals and y'all get y'all head chopped off at one time. Like, nah, everybody's situation is different too. So no, no, I'm not for class action lawsuits or anything like that. Nothing to do with this. All they talk about is sending money back home. Yeah, did you find that citation of authority for the business trust user? Yeah, I found it. I did a whole class on it. Dunbar versus Redding. I did a whole class on it. I did a whole class on it. I did a whole class on it. Dunbar. Yeah, I did if you were in the last trust class, I did a whole class on the citation of authority. Y'all tripping. Y'all come to class if you want to know what the answer is. You come to class. It says, during your criminal case, how did they address you? Did they ever actually say you were a U.S. citizen or what venue they're operating in? No, I didn't say any of that. I didn't ask any of that stuff when I came in because I wasn't challenging jurisdiction. I was doing acceptance for value. The thing is that y'all like to challenge jurisdiction, so I just tell y'all how. You can't challenge jurisdiction till you know the true nature and cause of the action. I did use that in there though, and they told me a statutory jurisdiction, and I came back on. I think that's what got my case thrown out. And because when they say statutory jurisdiction, there's no such thing as a statutory jurisdiction. And if you got that on the record, then what? How you going to try me in a statutory jurisdiction? Where in the Constitution is a statutory jurisdiction carved out? Somebody just explain it to me. All these people in government receive a delegation of authority from the Constitution. That's why the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So don't try to diminish the Constitution because you can't create no type of statutes, codes, rules, or regulations if a certain power hasn't been delegated to you to do those activities. So we have to look at the Constitution to derive jurisdiction from. And I've never seen a statutory jurisdiction in the Constitution. How do you feel about the certificate of assumed name out of Minnesota? I don't give a fuck about none of that shit, okay? It's private processes, which means you should be doing your own paperwork, not using state-sponsored paperwork in the first place. So I don't give a shit about a certificate of named authority coming from Minnesota because it just evidences that you're still a beginner because you're still looking for state paperwork to fill out. When that's not how you correspond with your public officials. We are of the people. They correspond with each other like that, but when we talk to them, I can write them a goddamn letter, and they better answer the damn letter. I had to do all that shit. I'm a private. I don't need to look through none of their codes to do nothing. Not anything. You are a private American citizen. You're supposed to know how to do things for yourself, not fill out a form for somebody else. The only reason you should be even doing tax forms is because you are effectively connected with a trade or business within the United States. But constantly looking for all these different forms and everything, or you got to put a notice in the public or something. That's the only kind of notice I'm giving them. But I'm not looking for other forms and things to give to these people. I don't even like filling out GSA bonds. I don't like doing that. I like to do my own bonds. Give them a bond, that you do for yourself. So, but you're not to say you can't use them, but still, you don't, what I'm trying to say is this. When you become private, you know how to do everything yourself. The government forms are there to assist people who don't know what they're doing. So they guide you on the form of what to put on here, put this on here, and put that on there because they looking at you like, you handicapped, you don't know what you do. This is the information that we need. So, but when you give notices and everything in the public of who you are and things of that, and that's why all these people have all these status correction processes, which by the way are not bad. But a status correction process is you giving your notice as a private American citizen to a public servant. So they can no longer operate under a presumption. He said, I literally got all the records. She admitted there was no common law here. Then I did a public records request for a complete copy of the contract. Well, yeah, I mean, if she said there's no common law here, well, there's, what you operate on, it has to be Admiralty Maritime. It's not, and if it's not equity, it's Admiralty Maritime. I'm sitting here reading stuff on the Admiralty Maritime right now, jurisdiction. And what it is, see, they want to make you think that's the law of the sea. It is the law of the sea, but people don't know how extensive the jurisdiction extends on the land. It extends on the land as well, because you have like 90, I think something like 90% of commerce, 85% of commerce, or 90% of commerce goes over the sea, and there's another 10% that goes over the land, and that admiralty law applies on land. And there's even, matter of fact, let me give y'all some right now. I'm I was just reading this. Let me see. Yeah, there it is right here too. Let me all right, this right here. This thing is blinking, man. I'm trying what this thing blinking like this. I'm trying to see make this thing go slower. It's not. Shoot. I'm gonna see if I can show you. I'm sure I can show it to you real quick anyway. All right, this is the secret maritime jurisdiction exposed. And here you got some good citation of authority. Right here it's talking about there aren't any common law. He said there are no common law offenses against the United States, only those which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. That's really interesting right there. Action to recover penalties imposed by acts of Congress generally, but not invariably, have been held to not be criminal prosecutions. And they got contempt proceedings, the nature of the accusation. But let me go into this. It's down here. They got some good stuff, man. Fraudulent, clean hands, presumptions. What is this? Congress has repeatedly had the courts have the power to right here, like here's some. Like Congress is repeatedly held by the court to have the power to extend the admiralty and maritime jurisdiction by statute, and Congress has repeatedly exercised that power. This is Lotawa. Here it is, 88 U.S. Reporter, page 558. Um, where's another one? right here. However, the court has also repeatedly declared that there are constitutional limitations upon the power of Congress to legislate in this area. The most direct recent exercise was the Admiralty Jurisdiction Extension Act of 1948, which gave the Admiralty Court cognizance in rem as well as in personam of torts caused by vessels on navigable water, notwithstanding that such damage or injury be done on consummated on land. All right. And the case, where's the other one? They have a whole bunch of them in there, but I'm looking for the one where you talk about it extends to the cars, that you drive in cars and everything. And y'all should really, really read this because this thing is good. It has a lot of case law, and I'm gonna have to let y'all just find it on your own. It has a lot of case law. This secret maritime jurisdiction exposed. I don't know what's wrong with the camera. I can't really get it to stop blinking. But the secret maritime jurisdiction exposed is a very, very good document to read because what it does is it explains what these people do first and foremost is that you have to be able to prove your position. Okay, that the burden of proof is on he who asserts, not he who denies. So if you're going to assert that it is an admiralty or maritime jurisdiction, then you have to be able to prove it. There is ample case law within the on the books that does prove that they've been extending the Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction, which is civil in nature. It's important to understand that it is civil in nature because that means it's about money. It's about some money. This is how they create bonds and different things like this. These bonds, that's how we get into all this bond discussion because it's creating some sort of debtor and creditor relationship because it's an action for the recovery of a penalty. There's some sort of penalty that's going to be imposed. Or another name for it is a tax. So, and you learn all this when you study the history of admiralty. And that because when you study the history, they weren't hiding things. They're hiding things today. They have a vested interest in making sure that you never understand the true nature that the court is operating under. So everything that all their books and everything, while they may tell you the truth, it's going to be couched in language that's going to be very confusing. They do all that. They cover in their tracks very, very well with this. So you got to be the kind of person that's going to, do some serious research if you really want to see the truth. You're not going to be able to see the truth and you just some kind of weekend warrior or you listen and other people tell you stuff. You got to get past that stage. When you first come into this information, you go through that stage where you're going to listen to a whole bunch of people and people are going to be saying things that are going to resonate with you. And then you're going to start trying to do paperwork that belongs to other individuals. But then if to really, really progress into this thing where you are a true sovereign is when you start going and investigating things for yourself and learning how to do things for yourself and seeing the truth for yourself, not through the eyes of someone else, but through your own eyes. And you see everything clearly through your own eyes. That's when you become a sovereign. But until then, you're just some sort of, like student or something like that, that just trying to still learn the stuff. You got to get to that point where you can start studying this for yourself, and then you'll start seeing it everywhere. And the way that you have to do it is you have to start with principles of law. You gotta stay tightly connected to principles of law. You can't go off of people's opinions and things like that. You got to study principles of law. And then the truth just pops out right at you when you do that. What it said Section 1 describes the difference between public international law and private international conflict of laws is to decide venue. I'm not really sure what you're asking right there. It said, where do you trace the address switch of this case and the transfer of jurisdiction from the out of state where they make the initial findings of fact? What he said, it says, where do you trace the address switch on your case and the transfer of jurisdiction from the out of state where they make the initial finding of fact? I don't know. It's got to be in your discovery. I mean, everything about your case had to be filed for the public to see. It's a public case. So there's something in your discovery, in your file, in your case file. It's gonna have something in there. Just read through your paperwork. I mean, that's what I would do anyway. If I was helping you out, first thing I want to see is I want to see all your paperwork. When I look at the paperwork, it's probably a lot of paperwork you're not paying attention to. In it too, you need to look at every little detail, every little piece of paper. You ask the clerk for your file, and they got to give you a copy of your file. You're entitled to one free copy of your file. Did y'all see how Trump has a replica Ark of the Covenant at Mar-a-Lago so he can practice blaspheming the Most High? I don't know. When did Donald Trump ever blaspheme the Most High? Boy, one thing I noticed about the people, the detractors of Donald Trump is y'all just make up a lot of shit, man. That's why y'all lost the election. Because everybody in the world could see that what kind of people you were. You're just making up shit. You just very, very nasty people. You try to say that the Republicans are racist and all these different things, but people can just look at The View, those ladies on The View. They're like vipers, like a den of vipers, just negative, just a whole bunch of negative emotional people, and just launch allegations that cannot be substantiated by anything, and will just say it, and then only people that you are looking to get on board with you are those who are not informed, who are not well read on anything, and who are just extremely operate from their emotional body. They're just emotional. They don't think things through, because a lot of the things that you say is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. You'll just say things, this man ain't said nothing remotely. Like the attack on January 6th, y'all just kept trying to say he incited a riot. And no, I watched all of that. That man, they right now are in the Senate hearings exposing the Democrats for trying to say that by playing back his speeches like he didn't incite anything. But y'all people will just say things, man. It just lie. And this reminds me of St. John 8:44. It just reminds me that St. John 8:44. The 8:44, you are of your father the devil. You are your father the devil. Right here he said, you are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And let me tell you something. When I'm watching the Democrats, and just this election, man, and how y'all threw everything y'all could at this man. Y'all threw entertainers. Y'all tried to impeach the man like 3 times, tried to kill him twice, tried to put criminal charges on him and call him convicted felon, talking about he got 42 felonies. Anybody ever been arrested know that's ridiculous. He got 42 felonies, that's counts. You know what I'm saying? But he got 42 felonies, just different things that were being said. It was just ridiculous, and when you look at the case, you're like, what did he do that was wrong? All businessmen do the same thing. All this stuff gonna get overturned. You threw everything you could. You had all the media channels against him. You had CNN, MSNBC. Only one that would give him any type of good coverage was Fox News. So you got all the media channels, all of Hollywood, all the music people. You got $1.3 billion to throw at it. That's how much Kamala Harris' campaign raised, and the American people voted against you in a motherfucking landslide. And here's the thing: you would think you would say, "Oh, we all must be the ones who just stupid, and y'all are the smart ones. You're the smart ones, and we just stupid." Okay, I got you. I got you. I got you. I'm an auditor and I have an op against a public bus station, and they tried to have me take my video down. I told them it was treason. My videos got to stay. Also, they held me in civil contempt and lost. I don't know what that's about. Can you talk about how the information will find you when you're ready to learn it? Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, anything in life, that's how it is. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's one of the Hermetic principles. That's an Hermetic principle. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that usually requires you to have to, at some point, you have to be put on a path. You have to be on a path to truth. If you just like still out in life with no direction and just kind of like playing video games every day and you're not really headed anywhere in any direction. There's nothing, you're not listening to your inner voice, you know. But when you start listening to your inner voice and it starts guiding you towards certain pathways, that's when you start coming across certain information. I don't think everybody will come across this information. I think the majority of people who come across this information are going to be the ones that are going to be the future leaders who are going to need to educate people, because what we need is a deeper level of education on this information too, not just this all caps name is your straw man, file a UCC1. It's some deeper levels of civic understandings that need to be proselytized. Like a real keen and thorough understanding of the principles of the Constitution, in particular separation of powers. It's amazing to me how many American people don't really understand separation of powers. It's like when I was growing up, that was fundamental. They used to play that on Schoolhouse Rock, but people today they don't understand it. So if you don't understand separation of powers, then how are you going to understand your court system? Each individual branch of government has their own court system. The legislature has a court system. The military has military tribunals. They have a court system. And then Article 3 Justice, the Supreme Court, they have their court system. So all the branches have a court system, but you aren't apprised of the fact of which one you are going into. It used to be an announcement in the pleading that in the complaint that would let you know, and they took that out. So now you got to do a bill of particulars, or you got to ask yourself. But they get to operate under a presumption because you've elected to be a U.S. citizen, because they got your social security number, that you already know all of this information. They got a right to think you already know. Where we at? It say if you capitalize the first letter of your first and last name, but the rest is lowercase, does that change the meaning? Listen, public is public and private. It don't have anything to do with your name. The all caps name is just to give you an indication that it's a public entity. But if you change the name to the Christian appellation of your name, but it's still referencing some sort of public entity, it didn't change anything. It's not the spelling of the name that controls. It's the jurisdiction that the name is operating in that controls, not how you spell it. That's really just done as some sort of courtesy to inform you that this is public and this is private. But that just because you change the spelling of the name doesn't inherently mean that something is private just because you change that. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. $20. Peace to the guys. Thank you for being a master teacher in the path to ascending master. You're welcome. That's just ridiculous. You think that? You think that people in this movement think that? That's ridiculous. If you thought just people just think just the changing of the name changes the nature of something. No, it's public and private. Everybody in the public, usually if it's a public entity, they write it in all capital letters. They must be doing it for some reason because it's on every damn thing. It's on their nameplates when they and then when they convened at a meeting. It's on the caption of your pleading. It's on your driver's license. It's on your social security card. It's on all your utility bills. It's on your bank statements. What, are we supposed to just ignore it? And they just happen to do that. And there's nothing in the rules of English grammar that allow that. So they just ignore the rules of English grammar. So what does it mean? Because in law, everything is a science. Nothing is just left to, everything means something in law. Let me take some calls now. All right, let me go to everybody. Wait, let me go to the area code. And where we at first? We're gonna go to, let's hop over to California, Berkeley, Beverly Hills. California, Beverly Hills. 310-0101. Your mic is open.
Can you hear me, Yusuf?
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. How you doing, brother?
How you doing, man?
Doing good.
I'm doing cool, man. Hey, look, first I want to give you your props, man. I've been following you for like 18 months now. And I just got to say, you are the shit.
Appreciate it, man. I'm all
All
right.
right. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Nah, man, look. Nah, you the shit, bro. Now, number two is I've been subscribed to SBC University, man, for about, I studied you for like 18 months and I decided to subscribe to you. And I've learned so much, man. And I talked to you before um, when you got out of, you had did a live on TikTok. You had just left the gym.
Right.
And you had told me you was going to look at my account, man, because I'm having problems with my account. And I've left
Okay. I'll look
emails
at.
to your administration.
All right. And I think I did look at your account and I didn't see anything was wrong with it. Let me look at it again. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I'll look at it right now for you.
Yeah, it's Jerron Green. Okay.
Let me see. Let's see. And wait, what you say the name was again?
Jerron, Jeron.
Okay, that's all I need.
Last name Green.
That's all I need right there. All right, let's see what we got. Yep, I got you right here. Pop right up. Let me see where it's let me see what's going on with it. Yeah, you out in California. Well, it looks like you tried to you did a Cash App payment. That's why. Did you send another because you paid through Cash App? Okay, yeah, you got to.
Yeah, I sent it through Cash App.
Yeah, you got to get off Cash App, man. We don't take Cash App payments anymore. But I'll look. I will look. I will look. I will look at this though. I will look at this though and see. Did we get the Cash App though? Did we get that Cash App? Because the Cash App doesn't automatically update. That's all it is. Then we have to do that manually. So I'll update it for now, but I had to verify it. But go ahead.
Okay, your administration had sent me a email saying to send the receipt. So that's what I did. And they said they would get back to me, and I just never heard nothing back. But I know, you know what I'm saying? I know these things happen.
I got you. But that's what it was. You got this Cash App thing on here. So I took care of it for you. You good. You good.
Okay, thanks, man. Okay. So look, I'm going to the thing right now where I'm into like the jurisprudence.
Right.
That's the next book I'm going to check out because I got a civil case going on. But I told you about, and these lawyers, man, they did they shit, man. They took 40 racks from me, 5 different lawyers, 5 here, 8 here, 10 here. They really did they shit. And my thing was, when I learned about the minor, you being a minor, the age of majority, I learned all that through you. So when I learned that, and I figured, I was like, why do I have all this evidence? And none of them, the judge, they don't want to hear this shit. They just keep giving me continuances. And so I went in there when I got your thing on the Sixth Amendment about challenging jurisdiction or the nature and the cause. And I went in there with that, man. Them sheriffs threw me out. I'm the one that made the post in the group, and they make it hard to be sovereign in California.
Right.
And that was me, right. Man. That was me. And man, I just want to say I got the answers now. It's just a lot of reading, and because I put in the form to give them back my Social Security, man. And I know the number. I don't want nothing to do with that number. And I agree with you. What you said a long time ago. I do believe that Social Security number is the mark of the beast. I really do.
It's the Social Security number because they got everybody focused on, you're the name. It's not a name. It's not the name. Everything in the IRS is identified by a number, either an EIN number, a tax identification number, or a Social Security number. everything in their system, every entity that is involved within that system has a number associated with it. Everything has a number associated with it. So that's what it is. And if you pay attention, even in the hospital, okay, they try to get you to leave with two things: a birth certificate and a social security number for your child. The birth certificate, I don't have a problem with because it really just evidences that you were born and you're part of the land here in this country. But a lot of people make more of the birth certificate, I think, than really what is necessary. It's when they come behind that with that social security number. That social security number evidences that you are some sort of recipient of benefits and privileges from the government. That's the secret maritime contract that they are presuming that you've entered into based off the acceptance of this social security number. That's the contract, and you've accepted the contract. So, and that everything within their system operates through that number. You can't get nothing without somehow connected to that number associated with the government. Everything. And that leads into a discussion about Project 2025, which we need to have a real serious discussion about, because the way the Democrats characterized that was ridiculous as well. Anyone who did a cursory investigation into Project 2025 sees that it was none of those things that they were trying to attribute to it. On top of the fact that if you did have some sort of basic civic understanding as the difference between a democracy and a republic, you would know that what Project 2025 is the dismantling of the welfare state so that we can reduce spending of government. Because government, the reason they borrow the money and spend the way they do is to fund these welfare programs. They keep putting welfare programs together to give them an excuse to take money and give it to their friends, give it over to Israel, give it to Ukraine, all these different places, because they have to borrow money in the name of doing it for the benefit of American citizens. That was a part of the New Deal. The New Deal was we'll borrow money for welfare programs as long as you be the surety for them. And that's what your social security number represents. They taking money out of your check every 2 weeks, every week. What is it you don't understand? It's for the repayment of the national debt. And only 51% of the people actually pay income taxes. So that's why they have to find different creative ways of getting the money back out of you. So they create all these different laws and all these different malum in se and malum prohibitum type of laws and everything that come into effect to try to get a charge on you, which is a charge against property, which is against your social security number. They creating money. Everything in today's society revolves around the creation of money, and money, for it to exist in our society, there has to be debt, because debt is being used as money. And if you don't understand that you won't understand none of this stuff that's going on. If you don't understand how debt is being used as money, and debt has to be created. So everybody's looking for a way to create debt. And usually the evidence of it is a lien, a contract. A lien is a contract, some sort of contract that is in existence, that has an obligor and an obligee. And you're being looked at as the obligor, as to have some sort of duty to perform.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's where trust comes in at, right?
Well, the trust, the trust does come in right here, because with the trust, what you're looking to do is, the first step is you're looking for ways to move without using a social security number. All right. The system is set up to accommodate business. That's all it's for. It's not for anything else. That's what, when you look at all the statutes, codes, rules, and regulations, they talk about business. You go into the law library and pull United States Code annotated off of the shelf and go through it and read it. 99% of the shit in there is talking about corporations in some capacity. Really 100%.
Yeah.
It's talking about businesses and things like that. So, what they've done is, with the criminal aspect of things, that's where everything gets confusing and conflated, because they had to use an Admiralty type of jurisdiction, which is civil in nature, because that's going to allow them to act as a bank and create money. Because a charge on property, that's what a charge is. Your property is your social security number. A claim comes in the form of these statutory codes, rules, and regulations. When they put a claim against your estate, if you don't respond to it properly, it constitutes it's evidence of a debt. And this is where municipal bonds come in and all kind of things to fund all this stuff that's happening in society. Now, taxes won't pay for everything. We don't even that's what Ronald Reagan with the that study that he did. That's what it revealed that 100% of the taxes just gets ate up by the interest on the national debt. Almost no money that you paying in taxes goes to pay these things that you think they go to. You thinking taxes are going to pay for roads and schools. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's municipal funds that are paying for all of this. They taxing you in other kind of ways. And that's what people better wake up and start understanding, because there's not the national debt is $35 trillion, man, right now, rising every day. That's not even your debt. That's the debt of the corporate United States. That's the debt of the United States in the capacity of them using Federal Reserve notes, because that's who they're indebted to. And they had to get a contract with us where we would agree to be a surety for that debt. And that's why you're a franchise of the United States. That's why you foreign to the United States, because you weren't a part of Washington, D.C., that 10-mile square that is carved out in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution. You're not one of its insular possessions. The only minimum contact that you have with the federal government is that Social Security number.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's the Social Security.
Anyway.
And I wanted to also, man, give you your props, man, because, listening to you, man, I started going in there telling that judge off, man, and the dude they started having the sheriff throw my ass out of there. I'm like, I'm not agreeing to nothing you do. I'm not coming past the gate that you go on the ship with. I'm talking from behind I forgot the name of it. Anyway, I think you know what I'm talking about when you go to these Article 1 courts. I'm like, man, what is the nature of the cause? What jurisdiction am I in? I'm not trying to hear that. This dude, and after it got funny, I'm not scared of them no more. And I used to be.
I mean,
I really thought they had some type of position of authority over me, and they don't.
They don't have that kind of authority over you. Equality under the law is necessary. Is mandatory.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, they try to make light of constitutional questions, and that's of a concern. And that should be a concern to all American citizens in this country. And that's why I tell people to go into the courtroom and ask them constitutional questions. And they try to make light of it. They try to play, you're disrupting the proceedings. No, we're not doing anything. We're asking you, we are of the people. You are public servants. All right. The Constitution for the United States of America is the supreme law of the land. And that is our protection. And we have a right when we invoke that. Okay. If you do not follow by that, then that by definition, that's treason.
Yeah.
You warn against the Constitution.
Yeah.
So, now there has to be, I have to ask a question. Why is it that you presume that you have the authority that you think you have over me? I've got to ask that question. Where does that come from? Oh, by me just being in the vicinity? No, we got state citizens and we have federal citizens. There's a federal citizenship and a state citizenship. And if I'm not effectively engaged in a trade or business within the United States, then I don't see where you have standing to sue on a matter against me. Now, I'm not saying 9 times out of 10, when I read all of the indictments that come out of the federal courts, they always somewhere in the recital of those indictments are going to say where they obtained jurisdiction from. Well, what activity that you were engaged in, whether it was interstate commerce or violation of some sort of federal statute. But they're going to let you know. The government does everything right. I'm by no means on here saying that the government is doing things wrong. What they are doing is not giving full disclosure of the nature of the things that they are doing. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the government does everything just about the right way, but that is heavily predicated off the fact that they understand that most of the population is ignorant about a lot of things, and they're going to get away with a lot of things. They just do it, and that's how you can catch them a lot of times, because they so lackadaisical and been doing so many things such as a matter of course that they slip up on a lot of procedures. And this is where abatements come in. You got to abate something, and make them do everything procedurally correct, like revealing the nature and cause of the action. That's a procedural requirement that they have to fulfill because it's in the Constitution. So there's a due process violation if you're not going to reveal the nature of the action. How am I going to effectively mount a defense in a court where you don't reveal the true nature of the action? Nature in the sense that if you say I'm in contempt of court and I say, is that going to be civil or criminal? There's a civil contempt and there's a criminal contempt. What is the nature of the contempt? So if you say, okay, well, I'm charging you with a crime, well, what is the nature of the crime? Is it civil? There are civil crimes and there are criminal crimes. And if you say there are criminal crimes, okay, well, we got two categories of that. We got common law and we got admiralty. If it's common law, where is the injured party? Corpus delicti. Where is the injured party? Where is the affidavit of injury? From a person who I have hurt their right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if we're not talking about the common law, which you admit, it has to be admiralty. In admiralty, there has to be a maritime contract in effect. Could you please produce said contract, enter it into evidence, and enter into the record how I am a party to said contract and I'm required to perform under said contract? See, that right there is going to reveal too much. If they got to reveal that, then we got to get into these minimum contacts. They got to start talking about, well, you are an acceptor of benefits and privileges. You do have your children in public school. Did you register to vote? Don't you have a driver's license? Aren't you working a 9-to-5 job? Don't you got state plates on your car? Didn't you just get a divorce and invoke the authority of the court to come and assist you with your divorce? They have a lot of minimum contact. Don't you use Federal Reserve notes? Don't you have a bank account? Don't you have some credit cards? These are the things this is unspoken, all right? These are the things that are the nexus that attaches you to their jurisdiction. You're an acceptor of benefits and privileges. Like I try to tell people, you want to see an example of somebody who really understands that, I'm going to point out the Amish. That's why they don't want anything. They don't want no cell phones, they don't want no TVs, they don't want nothing. I don't want anything from you. I want to be free. I want to be left alone, which is what privacy is, the right to be left alone. As long as you don't violate somebody else's rights, which the public has rights to. It's called the public rights doctrine. They have rights because there's a constitution. It should be common sense that the public has rights because we delegated authority to them and they got a right to execute on that authority. So it is your duty as an American citizen to understand the limits of their authority, which is what the Constitution is. It forms government and limits government. And then where from that demarcation line that separates public from private, what your jurisdiction is, because the superior man stays in his own domain. So your thing is you're supposed to be learning how to operate as a private citizen, meaning in commerce, how am I going to, either am I tax exempt or am I liable for a tax? That's what it really ultimately comes down to. Everything is about taxation. You're taxed for accepting benefits and privileges. You're tax exempt when you don't. It's that simple.
Also, man, I also want to thank you. I want to thank you for turning me on to the 3811 form, which I got a gang of them on my desk right here. The green certified mail, the 10 Maximum law, the contract unlimited. To read the Constitution before you start coming out here telling people about this stuff, because, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I try to talk to some of my family members. Nobody is on this. So to try to have a conversation with them about it, you go into politics, and when I'm telling them I'm voting for Trump, they looking at me some type of way, and I'm looking at you some type of way, like you really don't educate yourself, for the administrative process, man. I want to thank you. I really do, man, because I'm contracting with all these lawyers. I had 5 of them went through over 40 grand, man, and I got 3811s on all of them.
Well, yeah, man, that's going to happen. I mean, that's why everybody, if you're an attorney, you're wondering, well, how this guy is on here. It's because people come see you first, and then y'all do the same thing. We all got, everybody has the same story in dealing with an attorney on a criminal case. You take the money and then you start offering them plea deals, you know? And so, it's like your professional plea deal negotiators. How many of you out there truly fighting for someone's freedom? And are you even able to do that? I don't even think you're able to do it. That's what I'm saying. You can't fight the way that you want to fight because you're in a statutory jurisdiction. It's a different type of jurisdiction. It's not common law. So this is why people are, it looks like they screwing over everybody, is because really they went to school. You got to look at it from the attorney's position. They went to undergrad 4 years, then they went to law school 3 years, then they came out and they probably served in some sort of apprenticeship for a number of years before they got into their profession. They have a lot invested in this, and a lot of them don't find out the truth until they get in the profession itself. And they've invested all their life into making a living for themselves. Now, what I would tell them to do is, if you're that smart, it's a lot of opportunities to make money on the internet. I would get out of it, but you got to just kind of look. You got to take all those things into consideration when you are talking to an attorney, when you're doing any of this type of information. It's like, okay, they invested their life into this, and now here you come talking about this all. It's some bullshit. you know, so yeah, they're gonna fight for it, and some of them truly don't understand.
This is a civil case. This is a civil case, Houston. This ain't even a criminal case. This is a civil case. I know. A lot of the stuff that I hear you talk about, it's criminal. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, they do the same thing on a civil case because I got moved out. It's a landlord tenant type case, man. And I had all this stuff when I moved out. They coming at me for moving out. And I'm like, this is why I moved out. The dude had unsafe conditions. So I lay down all my evidence. Oh, he don't want to hear that. He's like, you ain't giving me nothing, man. You got to get this out of here. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on, man? Give me my bread, man. And this would let me down everywhere I'm at right now. If it wasn't for that case, I wouldn't have knew about none of this. Man, I went back and I looked at all your early, because I'm basically, where I'm from is around the corner from where you first started in California at Starbucks on Century and Rosecrans, right?
Yeah. I used to be there. Yeah, at the Starbucks on Central and Rosecrans. What you came by there or something?
Man, when I go by there, yeah, man, I'm familiar with it, right next door.
Yeah. That's where I started. That's where I very first started broadcasting from. Was out of that Starbucks on Central and Rosecrans. I used to do my webinars from there and everything because I used to use the internet in there. But yeah, that old Starbucks bring back memories, man. That's when I started doing all this stuff on Rosecrans and Central.
And I wish I would have followed you back then. I wish I'd have knew about you.
Right,
you know what I mean? But sometimes, one thing you said, there's always something. You said this a couple of months ago, and you repeated it. It's always something that brings you into this space right here. For me, it was this case. If it wasn't for the case, I wouldn't have knew about how the lawyers is. That I thought that the Code of Civil Procedure, I thought it was law. Man, I grew up thinking like that.
Right. It's gonna, like I said, everybody does have their own doorway that they enter into this information. But, it's like a tree with different branches. All the branches lead down to the trunk of the tree. And that's where, I try to teach from the trunk of the tree so people can get the basic understanding of it. If you get the basic understanding of this information, then when people start talking about remedy, you'll see your remedy. You'll understand your remedy because you have a firm, fundamental understanding of the law. You know what public is and you know what private is. Because some people, they try to sue and then they don't have no basis for suing. Because somebody may have a right, like for instance, if somebody accusing somebody of being racist. Okay, well, in the United States of America, we have what is called freedom of association. So if you're not an acceptor of benefits and privileges from the government, and you're a private organization, you can be racist. You can say we only have white membership. People can do that in the United States. You can do that. It's perfectly lawful to do. But people get mad about that and say, oh, they're a racist organization. I'm like, well, if you have freedom of association, that's one of the consequences of having a free country. But in a democracy where all the people are U.S. citizens and they all are characterized as receivers of benefits and privileges, meaning they're being taken care of, they fall under the doctrine of parens patria. So there's going to be some different kind of rules issued for those people. They're not really free private individuals. They under some sort of contract to conduct themselves in a certain kind of way. They're beholding to the same standards of the Constitution as anyone else. The Constitution is not for private citizens. Private American citizens, the Constitution has nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing to do with you. The Constitution is for the government officials. It's to guide their conduct and restrain their conduct. That's why we have things in there. They can make no law that will infringe on the obligation of contracts. Contract law is private law. That's all interaction between private individuals is contractual in nature. Our first contract is with God. We have some sort of covenant or something with God. Then you make a contract with your wife called a marriage a marriage certificate. A marriage is a contract. We operate in contracts on the private side. On the public side, the Constitution is what they fall under. So you got constitutional protections when you're private. If you're in the public, then you got what's called civil rights or civil liberties, as they like to call them. They give you they call them rights, but they're really some sort of liberties. They're like a benefit and a privilege that you're receiving. True rights come from God. True rights are substantive rights. True rights don't come from another man, government, organization, or anything like that. True rights are just something that are inherently recognized by all men on planet Earth. What your rights are. Ain't no another man that came out of between a woman's legs just like you did going to give you some rights.
They're not your rights until you speak them in existence.
Exactly. Hey, look, I got to move to the next caller, man, but I appreciate it, all right? I appreciate you calling in.
Hey, look, one more question. One more question, Lucius, and I'm gone, man. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay. In California, man, these notaries, when I send my documents, man, they don't want to they notarize the documents, but they won't do, my thing is, how can I get around the certificate of non-response?
You got to go make you a notary, man. Go make you a notary and train them. Get your girl. That's what I do. I go give me somebody I'm dating or somebody I know. I say, hey, you want to make some money? Yeah, I'm gonna pay for you to be a notary. I pay for them to be a notary, and then I teach them everything I need done, and have them do it. You can't make somebody. That's how I do it. You know what I'm saying? That's how I do it. You can't make somebody ain't familiar with none of this. They don't know who you are, and then you're trying to get them to do something. That's free. That's a freedom of choice. They don't have to do that. But if you close to somebody, they understand what it is that you're trying to do. They'll be more open to assist you with it. So go and create a notary. Do that. All right, y'all.
Okay. All right. They're looking out. All
right, peace, God. All right, let me go to.
Peace.
Let me go to what's the next area? Gallivanting around the country. Let's go over to Alabama real quick. 251 area code 4509, Alabama.
Yeah, what's good? Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, bro. What's going on?
Well, first off, man, I just want to thank you. You let me stop and shout my chin out a couple of times. My youth has also been growing a little TV. But I decided to call in today because I wanted to really just tell people what I be telling people all the time.
Okay, hold on, brother. You coming in kind of muffled, and there's a lot of noise in the background. Is there any way you can do something about that? Because I want to get a good recording.
Now.
All right, go ahead.
All right. For me, I decided to call in today because I think what I have to say is relevant to what you're talking about.
Okay.
It says how to, the topic was how to operate in the private sector. A lot of people don't understand that these incorporated cities, towns, and counties, you're in a territory. And a lot of people don't know that.
That's right.
You are in a territory. It's just like the District of Columbia, but it's the same thing, but it's just you just in a state territory, if that makes sense. And a territory is a dependency. And if you're over there in a territory, you can reasonably conclude, although that may be incorrect, but they can reasonably conclude that you are also a dependent because you're over there. You know, you live over here, you have a driver's license, your kids go to public schools, you're using Federal Reserve notes. But what they're going to do is they're going to deem you either a dependent, a corporator, a subject, or some sort of thing within their corporate territorial jurisdiction. That's what's really going on.
But you know what we try to address is what is the minimum contacts that, you know, like you said, having your children in public school. Those are the things that, you know, you got to sever all those things. Because you're right. But then, you know, I think really what it is they should never even have your name in their system. That getting that social security number to me is just the thing. But go ahead.
Yeah, the social security number, that's how they get you. That's really how they get you. But to be honest with people, this is just my own personal opinion. I think people really, if they're sincere about this, that you have to get out from up under their corporate territorial jurisdiction. You have to go through a rural area or something like that. And when you do that, you need to just automatically assume that the county is also exercising corporate territorial jurisdiction over that rural area, and send them some sort of cease and desist exercise of corporate territorial jurisdiction, something like that. Maybe that'll work. I don't really know. But it's supposed to work because you and the government are on equal footing. They can't sleep on their rights and you can't sleep on your rights. But the problem is getting these so-called courts to adjudicate it. And they don't really want to adjudicate anything controversial that really goes against the status quo today. They did maybe like 200 years ago or something like that. The judiciary really did their job then. They didn't care what the hell it was. They just adjudicated the case no matter what. But another thing that I want people to understand, because when you talk about the Article 1 court, so when you're in a territory, you're also in a miniature state. That's what they call it. They call it a miniature state. To be honest with you, they're really exercising this jurisdiction outside of the Constitution, to be honest with you. That's how they're able to use Federal Reserve notes over there in these territories. Because the city is a corporation. County is a corporation. Almost everything within that corporate territory is a corporation. They have EIN numbers and they have DUNS numbers.
Okay, this is the only part I probably will take issue is when you said they operate outside the Constitution. I don't agree with that. And I'll explain why. Because it is a territory. You just said it's a territory. So it's a territorial jurisdiction that they have. There's something called the plenary power doctrine. The reason it's a territorial jurisdiction is because the Constitution, whether it's state or federal, has carved out what their territory is, what they have jurisdiction over. So like in the federal Constitution, it's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, the forts, magazines, dockyards, all of the courthouses and everything, that falls under their territory. So now within that territory, and because of separation of powers, no other branch of government can tell them what to do. So they got full authority. They can do whatever they want to do. So that's why they had to bring Federal Reserve notes within that territory, because it is in the Constitution in the sense that the Constitution delegated a certain jurisdiction to them, and they kept Federal Reserve notes within that jurisdiction. They got us to come into that jurisdiction by contract. This is why, and this is where the Great Depression came in, when we had to start coming to them for help. And then they said they made a new deal. They said, okay, we'll make a deal with you. You need our help. All right, we're going to create this jurisdiction. We're going to give y'all a Sam's Club card, call it a social security number. Anytime you need anything from this jurisdiction, just present that card, and we'll be here to help you.
Okay, I can agree with that. So it seems like if that's the case, then they're operating under more than one constitution, because they have a corporate charter from the legislature, which is also their constitution.
It looks a lot like the original
Um,
Constitution, though. That's absolutely correct. There are two constitutions, but constitutions, when you look up the word in a Black's Law Dictionary, they're used to form corporations. So they got a corporate
yep,
constitution. It's like a
that's true.
charter. It's like a charter that they have. What they form, they
Mhm.
just use the same document to form the from the organic constitution to form the corporation. Same thing.
Uh, Okay, okay. I actually have a corporation's constitution on my computer, and it looks just like the federal constitution, which
Yes,
is
it
just, I
does.
thought that was just very interesting.
If
Yeah,
you
it looks just like it.
if you look
But
at yes,
another thing that I wanted, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to get back to what's really going on is for in the territory. You're in a miniature state, so it's like even though the people, the sovereign people of all of these so-called states all over the country, they've already created a state. When you go to a territory, you're in another state, if that makes sense. This is how they're able to exercise. I mean, this is how they're able to enforce their corporate bylaws that they call ordinance and statutes in this particular area, because they're not laws. It's a variation or a species of law, but it's not law. And if
Ex-
they don't apply outside of the corporate territorial jurisdiction, because all legislation is territorial.
Man, let me tell you something. If you like in
So,
Texas, the process to go through getting a driver's license, man, they make sure that you are a U.S. citizen and that you're within the territorial jurisdiction. These states, they understand what's going on. If you pay attention to a lot of processes, that this is why y'all, when you see getting your driver's license and things like that becoming so difficult or so involved, is because that's what they're making sure. They're making sure that you're contracting within that jurisdiction. They want to make sure you have an address, somewhere, and things like that. They're looking at all of
mm-hmm.
this. They looking at all of this. I do all this for a reason.
This is another reason why I was telling people. Remember now, you and the government are on equal footing, but because you're in a territory, there's really nothing you can do unless all of the people within that territory come together and just abolish it or something like that. Then you probably can do something. But that's likely never going to happen because everybody doesn't even know what the hell's going on. And then some people are okay with their territory, but that territory is also where the democracy is. That's the democracy within
That
that
is the
territory.
democracy. That is
But
absolutely correct. That's the
yeah,
democracy.
yeah, that's where it is. It's in that territory. So if you want to remove yourself from there, you can. You can go and you can create your own private city. You can create your own roads. You can create your own street, your own house addresses, all of that stuff. But when you do that, you're doing it outside of their corporate territorial jurisdiction. If that makes sense, because they really want to keep you in there with these minimum contacts.
They
That's
do.
why they start asking you these jurisdictional questions when you make a special appearance and you tell them you're here to challenge the jurisdiction and all that stuff, and they start asking you these territorial jurisdiction questions, these minimum contact questions. That's what they start doing.
Yep.
Um, but this whole miniature state thing. So a city, this goes over people's heads too. But a city, an incorporated city, town, or county is also an administrative agency. That's what it is. Um, so administrative agencies, they exercise so-called all three powers of government. So the municipal judge, if you have a municipal judge there, she or he represents the judicial branch. The city council represents the legislative, and the mayor represents the executive. But administrative agencies, this is how they're tricking people. Administrative agencies are a part of the executive branch of government. I don't care. I don't care if there's a judge in here, so-called judge in here, sitting on the bench,
That's
acting like a
right.
judge. He's a member of the executive branch of government. This is why we call them executive administrators. So that's exactly what he is, and he has no judicial authority whatsoever.
Hold
The
on.
legislature does not have any to give him.
They don't, but let me tell you this. What they do is they do what's called delegation of powers doctrine. The legislature is the
Mm-hmm.
one and they delegates a portion of their power to the executive and the judiciary. This is why you can see an Article 3 judge sitting on a bench in an Article 1 court. He's not there in his Article 3 capacity, but he can come over there because he received the
No, he's
delegation
not.
of authority. This is what the Judiciary Act was all about. You see, if you think about the Judiciary Act, think about this. The Constitution formed the different branches of government. How can they have a Judiciary Act forming the U.S. Supreme Court? I thought the Constitution already did that.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did
Yeah.
was they formed the U.S. Supreme Court, not the Supreme Court for the United States of America. There's the Supreme Court for the United States of America, and then there's a U.S. Supreme Court. All right, everything that they got, it started off with U.S. citizen, U.S. Supreme Court, U.S. United States Postal Service, U.S. person, U.S. Everything starts U.S. So that's what it is for U.S. Constitution. You got a Constitution for the United States of America, and you got U.S. Constitution, U.S. Supreme Court. Just pay attention. They label everything. They label it and let you know. So, nobody asked the question, what did the Judiciary Act form? The Judiciary Act, let me look at it real quick. Of 1789, okay, one of the first acts of the new Congress was to establish a federal court system through the Judiciary Act signed by President Washington on September 24, 1789. All right, so they formed this court system, which is legislative, and they delegated authority to U.S. Supreme Court justices to come and act in an appellate capacity over their decisions. That's why all the U.S. Supreme Court justices call their decisions opinions. All right, because of separate, you'll see in the law, it'll say that the legislature is not even required to have the Supreme Court overlook their decisions. They're not, because it's operating in a separate jurisdiction. This is why they have this doctrine called you have to exhaust your administrative remedies, because the Article 3 judges have to give deference to Article 1 because it's a different branch of government. Separation of powers put them all on equal footing.
That's right.
So, so you can't. So when you start understanding this stuff, you'll see how the game is played. You'll see how it's played. You're in an Article 1 court. It makes
perfect sense to me.
They legislative courts.
This is what, that's right. That's right. So this is what I found out. And this is actually a rule. This is a principle. And they've been doing it everywhere. But this is what the case law says. I'm going to read you this case citation.
All right.
It says, where special authority in derogation of the common law is conferred by statute on a court of general jurisdiction. This is a superior court. A court of general jurisdiction is a court that is created by the Constitution. But it says, when a special authority in derogation of the common law is conferred by statute on a court of general jurisdiction, it becomes an inferior or limited court. So they're talking about, so let's say like when you're trying to invoke the original jurisdiction of, let's say, the Supreme Court for the United States of America, you can do that without statute because statutes are not laws. But when you do it under a statute, you're limiting their jurisdiction. You're invoking their territorial jurisdiction, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what it says in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9. Congress can make tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. It's making reference to that language in Article 1. It's letting you know it's a legislative court. That's what they're saying. It's a territorial court. It's a legislative territorial court that you're going into, and it's limited in its jurisdiction because it operates within a statutory scheme outside of the republic. So and you'll see all of it is in harmony. Once you understand what's going on, every citation of authority that you read is going to make reference to the same thing. It's going to say the same thing, just in different ways. That's just an eloquent. That's just a very eloquent way of saying Article 1 court.
I agree with that. That's an implicit way of saying it as opposed to expressing. I agree with that.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say was it's courts of general jurisdiction. They get their authority from the Constitution, so they can act with statutes or without statute. You don't need if it's a court of general jurisdiction, you don't need a statute at all. Period. Like you literally don't need it at all. But courts of limited jurisdiction, so-called courts anyway, they can't do anything, generally speaking, without statute. They have to have
some sort of statutory authority that has been deposited into them from their maker, which would be the legislature. That's really the only way that they can pretty much do anything. But
delegation of
I think what. Go ahead.
No, you're right. Just a delegation of power that's been delegated to them by the legislature, so they can operate as courts.
That's right.
And the thing about it is that the statutory jurisdiction is for corporations. It's just for business. All the statutes are for business. Really, is to administer or to oversee, regulate the business activity that's in the state, because business is conducted through artificial persons. All right, so what they've done is they've turned almost everything into a commercial matter. When you get the Constitution of the United States Analysis and Interpretation, right there in the paragraphs in the introduction, they explain, the Supreme Court justices explain how the Commerce Clause has encompassed almost everything. I was just watching on this case law on my website. I'm going to give you the name of it right now. Y'all can go over here and look at it right now. It's case law on my website. And you don't have to be a member. Just go over there and click on case law. And it is U.S. Lopez transcript. That U.S. Lopez transcript, Judge Scalia, he's in there. He's a Supreme Court justice. He's talking to the man. He says, show me one case that y'all done brought into the U.S. Supreme Court that hasn't been about a commercial matter.
That's the only way to get it in there.
That's what he told the attorney. Right there in this, right here in this, U.S. versus Lopez. But you got to read this stuff. See, if you're not reading this stuff, you're going to fall victim to everything. They can put an article on the internet. Oh, the sovereign citizens believe this right here. Yeah, they can tell you that and you'll believe it because you ain't read shit. It's like, what are you talking about, man? You're looking at this dude over here doing this article. You know, this is a fucking demon. I say he's a demon. And that's what you're going to start seeing. This election was just an example of the length that they will go to. These people had all the media. They were throwing lies around, calling people Hitler, saying it's going to be the end of the world. People going to get put in concentration camps, all kind of things these people are just saying. They talking about, the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 is something from the depths of hell. Because you ain't never read it, and because you don't have good civic understanding, you don't understand what being a recipient of welfare, or what the welfare state is, and how it's funded. Mm-hmm. You're a welfare recipient. That's what you are if you're in the Democratic Party. You're a welfare. I'm going to call it what it is. Ain't nobody else going to say it like that. But that's exactly what it is. Because they're looking to give you government benefits. Because they painting you as a victim.
In exchange for your rights.
Yeah, you can't do nothing. You're a victim. All these people, they committing racism against you. Here, let's create some. Let's go borrow $1 billion so we can create some organization to combat that. Oh, you need to kill your babies? Okay, let me get another $1 billion so we can keep some sort of organization so we can help y'all with that. Oh, you don't know if you're a man or a woman. Let's go borrow another $1 billion and create some sort of organization so we can help you figure this shit out. Because you can't help yourself. You don't even know what the fuck you are. This is what it is every day. This is what it is. It's the game. You can't see the game. The game is about money. It ain't about helping you. The game is about they do the same thing in the music business. They do the exact same game that they do in government. In the music business, you go find an artist. He got some talent. He said, okay, well, I'm going to give you a record deal. What that is that's just a loan. I'm going to give you an advancement, a loan, $2 million. Okay? All right, so the record company is the one that gets it. They get the $2 million. The $2 million is for, to you to market this artist, to take him into the recording studio. But you start cutting deals under the table. Look, I just got a budget of $2 million. I know you charge $100 an hour or $200 an hour to come into the studio, but I'll bring them in here and let you get some of this budget if you kick me back $100 an hour under the table. This is what's going on with the music videos and all of that. So you got these under the table things, and at the end of the day, the person that's responsible for paying back the $2 million is the artist. None of the other record execs are responsible for it. So that's the same thing they're doing to the American people. They're not responsible for the repayment of all that money they're borrowing. You are. So they sit there and give $500 billion to Ukraine. They ain't worried about it. You don't think they're getting kickbacks for that? It's a lot of money being under the table getting kicked back. And that's why they want to keep borrowing money. But if they're going to keep borrowing money, they need to keep having welfare programs. And to keep having welfare programs, they got to keep coming up with different kind of problems. And that is predicated off you got to be a damn victim, helpless, can't do shit for yourself. You don't see the game? I'm not no person over here just voting for Trump and not knowing I'm talking. This shit is simple. If they making it difficult for you to understand, you're in the wrong place. The truth is simple.
Yeah,
this is about people getting money.
I agree.
Nothing more, nothing less. They got position of power. And they're worried about Trump coming in because he's going to arrest people. All the things they've been doing is getting exposed. Do you see what they showing? These senators putting up all this money they spending in foreign countries, like doing experiments for wearing a helmet over in Jamaica and Nigeria and shit. Like, what the fuck does American citizens got to do with that? That's somebody they done passed some money to and then earmarked it as some sort of welfare program. But they giving money to people. And you're a damn fool if you don't think that's what's going on. Hey, we got to borrow $2 trillion. For what? Obama borrowed $2 trillion. Obama borrowed $2 trillion and bailed out the banks. And y'all still paying the mortgage. And not one of y'all did when election time came up, instead of you saying, Obama, you just borrowed $2 trillion in our name to get these banks out of trouble. Why are we still paying mortgages? No. They started talking about trans agenda and shit like that. Took your attention to that. Instead of you concentrating on your quality of life. They got you focusing on bullshit or immoral stuff. You need to kill off your babies. What woman would vote for that?
Obama borrowed $2 trillion. He borrowed $2 trillion, paid the banks off, and the banks are still, they still made people pay their mortgages.
Yeah. What do you think bailout is?
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. I didn't know that. I know what a bailout is, but I didn't think that the people still had to pay their mortgages.
They got debt. They got bad mortgages. They would call it toxic paper and toxic mortgages. What the investors got paid, okay, they got bailed out. So the investors got paid. They borrowed money in your name to pay off investors.
For your benefit. Okay, yeah, okay. I see what you're saying now.
Every time they borrow some money, it gotta be for our benefit. That's why they gotta convince you. That's what the New Deal was. The New Deal was the Great Depression. And the American people was broke. They couldn't get no money. Wasn't no jobs. And you got to look before that, because prior to that, before Carnegie, the steel magnate, they started making these cities. Before that, you all lived in the country. Everybody had some land or something. Mm-hmm. You educated your children. You didn't have none of that. But when they started attracting you to these cities and putting you under municipal law and giving you jobs, you became dependents.
Mm-hmm.
You became dependents.
Yep, territory.
That's why they took all of the trades out of the high school, because they want you dependent. They want you to go to get good grades, go to college and take out a loan from the government. So you got to pay them back at interest. They want you to take out a loan and be in debt. And then half the degrees that they selling and peddling are worthless pieces of paper. You just got a degree in name only. You can't do nothing with it. And you're in debt just to say you got a bachelor's. How does that translate to making money? That's what I look at, the value of a degree. How does me getting this education equate into me getting 6 or 7 figures? If you wasn't doing that, you was wasting your time.
Yeah, you better off with a trade, man.
You better off with a trade. At least you got a skill that will pay you for life.
Yeah. I wish I would have learned that before I went to college. All I got is debt. And all I got is debt. I don't
Every
even.
woman I meet got student loans. I ain't met not one. I meet one, yeah, my student loans, could you really help me with my student loans? Can this help me with my student loans? They got student loans and everything, And I understand you fail for it, like go to school, get good grades, go to college, take out a loan. 200. Man, I found out how much it costs to go to college, man. Y'all paying like $60,000 a year to go to college. You paying like $240,000 to get a college degree. That's insanity. I
Yeah,
remember
that's
when
crazy.
I remember when it was $10,000 a semester. I thought that was a lot. And you get a grant or something for $40,000. I thought that was like when it was $10,000 a year. Y'all paying 60 now. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's excessive.
That's
Very
crazy. $60,000 a year. They normalize that shit in your mind. $60,000 to go to these schools. These schools making crazy amounts of money. Not to mention they athletic programs and things like that. And they making money. This is about money. My aunt, she was a vice regent here in Georgia, and she was explaining it to me. You have some presidents of colleges who are concerned with enrollment. That's all. They don't care about. Then you have some that are concerned with graduation, graduating, but only like 50% of the students graduate. 50%. Man, there's a video called "The College Conspiracy." You should really look and check that out. College shouldn't just be an avenue for everybody just to take. It's like you might need to go the trade route instead of going to school is not for everyone. And especially if you're going and you're not getting a meaningful degree. And like some specialized, you're going to be an architect, you're going to be an attorney, you're going to be a doctor. Something that's going to really require the utilization of the education that you receive in college. Not just to test as a benchmark to see if you can follow directions. I'm just saying. Go ahead, bro.
No, well, that's pretty much it. I ain't gonna hold the line up. I know you got some other callers on, but
it is. You're
I just
right
wanted to
though.
thank you, man.
It's a territorial jurisdiction. Everything you said was right. I just wanted to say to you, man, I'm very impressed with your understanding of all of this too, because the way you described it was perfect. I can listen to people and I can see they understand, and you definitely understand. You understand. You got a good understanding.
I had to read. I just had to read case, and when I was reading the cases, that's what they referred to it as. They always called it a territory. They called it a corporate territory or a municipal corporate territory or something like that. That's what they always called it.
It's a territorial jurisdiction.
And,
it is.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's where
plenty.
That's where.
It, man.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the next call. I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you calling in.
All right.
All right, let me go to. It's a territorial jurisdiction. What he was talking about is absolutely correct. You got to understand that in a territory, they got this thing called plenary power doctrine. You got to understand that doctrine because they essentially they are God within the territory. So they can do whatever they want to do. That's how they allowed the Federal Reserve to operate in that jurisdiction because it's in a territorial jurisdiction. And it's some sort of agreement that they have because the way the Federal Reserve talked to them, like somebody asked if Trump asked the commissioner of the Federal Reserve to step down, will he step down? He said, absolutely not. They don't have any power over them. They call them independent agencies, but really the Federal Reserve is a private international bank operating that's taking control of our monetary system in this country. That is really what's behind everything. The election, everything, is this Federal Reserve system. We really got to start focusing our attention on the Federal Reserve, who they are, how they are affecting everything. You're operating in a Federal Reserve system. It's a territorial jurisdiction that the Federal Reserve is in control of. That's why all the courts take Federal Reserve notes. Anything that will accept Federal Reserve notes is a part of the system. Anything. So the courts are accepting it. They're a part of the system. That's why we call them colorable courts, because they're not using real money. They're using colorable money. So they have to be using some sort of colorable law too, because they're not using real money. Everything is operating in a certain framework, in a certain jurisdiction. And you have to look at the whole of it. And it's all fictitious. It's all corporate in nature, using Federal Reserve notes, the script that they're using. It's like a Monopoly. They came out with the Monopoly board game. That's exactly what it is. It's like a game of Monopoly. They call it the commerce game. It's exactly what it is. Let me go back to the phone lines. Let's go over to, where is this right here? Let's dip down to Florida real quick. 904 area code, Florida. Your line is open.
Seville, what's going on?
Hey, what's happening, bro? What's happening?
Hey, man, I'm chilling, man. Highly favored. Listen to my fellow God here. So this is going to be an interesting call. I've been learning banking and mastering offset of public and public debt for about a year now. And I'd say I got a talent of grasping principles pretty well. So I'd like to build some rapport with you with an old interview you were on with Starving the System, dark-skinned guy named Elohim. I want to talk to you about that. Then after that, I want to challenge you on what you've been talking about all day about the relevancy of jurisdiction and relevancy of public and private when you doing business with a bank and you have the right to offset that debt, either demanding a verification or tendering some sort of negotiable instrument. But in my case, I was raised on full transparency. In my case, I haven't, done my master indemnity bonds, so at this moment I cannot tender negotiable instruments. And I'm going to give you arguments to where I don't have to do that.
You don't have to do it. You have to argue. You don't have to argue with me, man. Every time somebody asks me that, I answer the same way. You don't have to.
You don't have to do, you don't even have to, I think the UCC1 is necessary for when you do tender negotiable instrument, you can file a claim on it back just in case the bank you're dealing with doesn't want to give it back.
Well, you got to understand. The first thing, there are rules to using negotiable instruments. So when you're looking at the UCC is a codification of the law merchant, which is the rules for negotiable instruments that have been in existence for thousands of years. All right. So they took the law merchant and codified it, just put it in a code type form. So if you're going to use negotiable instruments, you should at least read the rules. You're not required to file a UCC1 because nowhere in the UCC does it tell you that you have to file a UCC1. That's nowhere in the code section. The UCC1 commercial chamber is
But the bank can keep your note if they don't want to do business with you. The bank can keep your note.
No, the bank can keep your note if you don't put the bank can keep your note if you don't put a claim on it and establish yourself as the holder in due course.
That's what I said, and that requires a UCC1 to do that. So to knock out the subject of the call,
right?
You were on this interview 10 years ago, specifically 8 years ago with Elohim, dark skin, bald guy.
Yeah, that was the first. Starving the System was the first time I ever did an interview.
Starving the System, my man.
You're right.
I don't mean to cut you off, but that man is one of the best videos on YouTube. Any God in the human body should watch, in my opinion.
Right, it was.
Because that's a good one, man. Because in my opinion, Yusuf, I have a plan to help people. I'm going to charge $333. I know you against credit repair people. But
I'm not against them.
That's having to be verified. Okay, right. That's having to be verified is the easiest way to remove any collections or student loans from your credit report. Because you and I both know banks don't loan money. They exchange our promissory note for credit, according to GAAP.
Right.
They exchange our note for credit. Cool. So my plan, man, I'm going to save people's lives. I'm going to get rid of people's mortgages by demanding an affidavit. I can use a qualified rent request in 2605, or I can use verification of debt in 1692. But I know 1692 is for a debt collector specifically, but I know the principle still stands for accounts. Correct?
That's correct.
You agree with that?
That's correct. I agree with that.
Right.
All debts had to be attested to under penalty of perjury. All debts had to be
penalty of perjury, and no bank officer is going to sign that because they may be very wealthy on their yacht, which I'm going to be on one day because I'm going to be the biggest YouTuber in Jacksonville, Florida. But they may be on their yacht. Some of them may be Satanists, but they're not going to swear to God on something false, right?
They're not. That's the one thing that I saw in my whole trek and journey early on, that they will not swear to God something that is not true. And people got to remember that, you know, they're not going to just swear to anything. So but all evidence in court has to be attested to under penalty of perjury. And how they get over on
Correct.
people is by finding ways not to have to do that. And one of the ways they do it is to get you to testify against yourself. That's why when they may want to take you into
contract,
something like that, they'll get you to do something against yourself. Is one of the strategies that they will do. They want to call you and put you on the stand, ask you some questions, because they don't have to prove anything if you attest to it yourself. That's why anything you say can and will be used against you. They use that against you heavily.
Right.
Heavily.
Since there's no gold and silver, you and I don't use the word pay. We use offset. But what was I going to say? All I got to do is teach my clients to be fearless. They're going to call you. We don't talk on the phone. We communicate through certified mail and with notaries. Because the universal law, that's our two witnesses there. So we've been able to offset debt and get rid of mortgages, jet loans, boat loans, motorcycle loans, all that with just sending letters. Do you think that is true?
No, I don't think it's as easy as you try to make it seem. I do think it is true. It's not just sending letters. I don't tell people to send letters. I tell them you have to have some sort of performance. If there is some sort of evidence of debt where somebody is saying that you owe them something, okay, well, you got to perform. There is something called UCC 3-611, or is it 311? It's called discharge by use of an instrument. Have you read that in the UCC?
That's 311, yeah.
Yeah, 311, discharge by use of an instrument. You always have to give them some sort of instrument to put on their books. That's why.
I don't think so, Yusuf.
Yeah, I do.
I don't think so.
I do, because
that's the easiest way. That's the easiest way, because you and I both know.
So what? Okay, so then how are they doing the accounting? How they doing the accounting? How they doing the accounting on the debt then?
Now I'm getting to that part.
Okay, how they doing
that part? This is the good part.
All right, go ahead.
In my letters, I didn't say what I was going to put in my letters. In my letters, so I'm in Florida, so I use Florida. And each bank has to be authorized to do business in this state if they're going to be here. So there's a law here. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm going to let your viewers do their research. So as a borrower, quote unquote, air quotes, and as a depositor, that's what I prefer to call myself, a depositor, because the bank made the promissory note for me instead of me making it myself, and I signed it, they deposited. So I'm a depositor. I have the right to inspect bookkeeping, accounting on such deposit accounts, loan accounts that I own. So in my letters requesting verification of the debt, I'm going to demand that as well. So I don't even have to really tender a negotiable instrument if I don't want to, and I may not enter into court. It could go to court because all roads lead to court, but I highly doubt it would, because they're going to be dishonorable on their obligation to verify the debt, mortgage, jet, yacht, whatever it is.
Well, you have a right to request an accounting. That's UCC 9-210, where you can request for an accounting in the UCC. All this is in the rules.
With collateral accounts.
Okay, so basically what you're doing is you're trying to put them in a position where they have to prove you're doing it like a conditional. You're doing a conditional. You're doing a conditional. You're doing a conditional acceptance. You're doing a conditional acceptance. You will accept their claim on proof of claim that you can substantiate that you made a loan, or in some kind of way there's some sort of valid contract that exists between us. That's what you're using.
Mm-hmm.
So you're continuing. So you're continuing. So are you using
people to help?
So are you using fraud? Or are you claiming fraud or breach of contract?
So like, it will never need to lead to a public proceeding. I can just communicate with.
What if it does? What if it does?
If it does, they will file the claim against me if it does.
Why are they gonna file a claim against you? How are you a real party in interest? How are you a real party in interest?
Because whatever entity that I'm using, I'm about to answer. Whatever entity I'm using, CPN, Social Security number, EIN, has quote unquote, according to them, failed to perform or failed to, adhere to the contract obligation.
Wait a minute.
I'm gonna win.
Wait a minute. Let me back up. Yeah. You say you were helping people. All right. So if you're helping people, then you're helping them with their problem, right? So let's say they have
we start off with cleaning the credit. We start off with cleaning the credit report.
Okay, now
that's the easy thing to remove is the student loan.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have any problem with cleaning credit. My issue with credit files is, do you have a credit file in your Social Security number? Okay, that's what I have
And
an
that's
issue with.
another thing I want to challenge you on, but go ahead.
You can go ahead and challenge me on it all you want. You're using the social security number.
Now, I would like to have a friendly debate.
No, you can get. You got it right now.
I've
You got the floor right now. How are you getting around using? How do you justify the use of a social security number and then claim that somebody don't have jurisdiction over it?
Now, I'm about to answer that question with a statement.
Go ahead.
So I've been on this line for about an hour and 30 minutes listening to these people before me, like the guy before me. All respect to him, all love, my fellow God. But this man was talking about, they don't have jurisdiction over us, which is true if you're not using their numbers issued to them. But bro, we're in the Federal Reserve System. They beat us to the punch. So I heard him mention build your private roads, build your private house. You're not going to find a builder in this country, even if they're in this information like you. Let's say I'm a construction worker and I'm a banker too. I know this information. I'm not going to build your house for your private bond. You have to use Federal Reserve notes or credit. So that's why I say we have to participate in the Federal Reserve System. I don't care what number you use. So to answer your question with the Social Security number, I don't think that matters. Because if someone files a claim against that all capitals, I'm not done. If someone files that claim against the all capitals number, if we don't have a victim with an affidavit of damages, like how I know how to file in my court case against the bank, like if they don't have an affidavit of damages, like I have the right to offset it dollar for dollar using GSA bonds, private instruments, whatever I want to do. So I think, and I know some rich YouTubers with penthouses and yachts who use the security number.
Okay, listen.
I don't think that matters.
As far as discharging a debt, it doesn't. When it comes down to being private and public, that's basically comes down to taxes. Okay, everything is about a tax. Okay, so when you're saying you're operating privately, okay, you're saying you're tax exempt. When you're in the public and you're doing business with the public.
If you're earning Federal Reserve notes, you are being taxed. If you're using Federal Reserve notes, you have some kind of tax obligation.
And the way that bro, I understand that. It's called if you are effectively connected with a trade or business within the United States. That's how it's written in the IRS code. What you just said. I understand that. You don't have to educate me on taxation in public and private. I understand that in any kind of, that's called a minimum contact. And it's going to create a taxable event. You can do business with gold and silver. So what you just said is not true. You can find people who will do business with you, engage in contracts with you, and use gold and silver.
Finding them. You can. Good luck.
That's not true. That is not true at all. What you talking about? It's not true at all. You can find people that'll do business with you. You can. If you are
going to buy the gold and silver?
If you personally,
how are you going to buy the gold and silver?
I got people. You can buy with Federal Reserve notes. You can. There are ways you can, or you can do it under the table.
Come on, man.
So when you convert it to Federal Reserve notes, pay the taxes on it, y'all. Whatever tax is going to be associated with it, and after the tax liability has been disassociated with it, it's free from that. Okay, you trying to act like I'm gonna use gold and silver. And then every time I use gold and silver, there's going to be a tax on it.
That's not my argument.
Okay, that's what it seems to be what your argument is.
Go ahead.
That seems to be what your argument is. Because it doesn't seem like you have a good understanding of taxation. Explain to me.
With all due respect.
Explain to me.
I'm going to get there because I had this plan.
Tax law is what?
I had an hour
tax law is in the public or the private? Tax law is in the public or the private.
If you have a tax,
bro. Tax law is in the public.
Tax is the public debt.
It's in the public. So there's no taxes in the private, right?
Well, so if me and you want to use gold and silver, me and you want to use crypto, no, there is no taxes.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead.
No.
All right, go ahead and what you're going to say.
Simple. So now, let's say I clear somebody's credit report with student loans, cars, cool, and they get a house. They still gonna be liable for property taxes. That's when your information comes in with tendering the Treasury.
Why are they paying? Let me ask you a question. Why are they paying property tax?
Go ahead.
Why? If you're a tax,
because
no, wait, listen. You're only taxed on benefits and privileges. That is all taxes are for, benefits and privileges. So if you're paying property tax,
what are you telling me?
What in any CP?
So you're telling me? So I live in a high rise right now. I don't live in a house yet. I want a house. So when I get a house for my social security name, EIN, or CPN, whichever I want to use, there's not going to be a property tax obligation? Is that what you're
Listen,
telling me?
first of all, I did not tell you anything. If you take the time and listen, the first thing you start with the fundamentals. Is it not a tax, or you only taxed on benefits and privileges? If you don't understand, go get your CPA and ask him right now. Are taxes only for benefits and privileges? They answer that
If you
question
have a
first.
property with
Taxes are yes or
if you have a
no.
property,
Yes or no, are taxes only, if tax law is in the public, it's not in the private, taxes are only for benefits and privilege. Are you trying to tell me you're taxed on rights? That's what you're telling me.
owning a house is not a right.
Okay, so you're taxed on a what? You're taxed on a what? A benefit, and you can say it.
You want me to say benefits and privileges?
That's right,
That don't
because
matter. You want me to
it's
say
only
that,
it's
but
only either
that's
or.
not that matters.
It's either a benefit or a privilege or a
That
right.
doesn't-
Which one is it?
How about this? Let's say this. If you use a bank mortgage application to acquire a house, I know how to get around the credit.
Let me say this.
By
The thing about it is you want to come on here and try to sound intelligent by making things seem complex, and I'm not going to let you do this. Let me explain this to everybody. Let me explain this to everybody. A tax is in tax laws in the public, okay? And taxes are only on benefits and privileges. Now, he said if you buy a house, you're going to pay property tax. My question was to him. My question to him was, why are you obligated to pay a property tax? That's because in some kind of way, a property.
You use the bank to acquire the credit.
No, because you pay property tax. No, because you pay property tax every year. Property tax is for your water, sewage, receiving mail, all of that right there. You receiving a benefit and privilege from the state. You don't have a allodial title to the property. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
So that leads me. I'm trying to finish. So that's why I brought up the previous call you had, gentleman, where you complimented his comprehension. Like, just like you said, nobody on this phone. I had your live up, but I don't have it up now. I don't know how many in there. Nobody in this live is going to build their own. Nobody on this live is going to build their own water system, build their own house, their own two hands, and build their own.
That's a damn lie. Now you must have never built a house, because anybody in the country, anybody in the country, you can have a well added to your house for $8,000. There's water running underground everywhere. And wait a minute. I had a house built on a well. I had a house built on a well. Like many of you out there listening to me, you have the same thing, and you know you don't have any water bill, because now they billing solar panels right now. Out of every 10-year callers, maybe one lives the way you just said. Out of every 10-year callers, maybe one. We can use the 10% There's a whole bunch of people have houses built on wells, man. Get on YouTube and Google it. And the only reason you don't know because nobody's told them. The only reason that you don't know is because people don't tell y'all
information. They're not in this call right now trying to get life.
And that's why I'm sitting here telling them you can have a house built on a well system. There's water running all through this planet, all over the planet.
How are you going to get the credit to build that house? How are you going to get the credit?
It don't matter when you first get the credit. You're going to have to do that in the beginning. If you're going to have to do that in the beginning, you can get the house in another name. You get it in a corporate entity's name.
Now, that's what I'm saying. If we get the contract, we have the right to offset it. Yes.
I agree listen, my point is this. The only thing I'm saying, you don't need to file a UCC-1 to discharge a debt. However, how are you going to put a claim on the instrument? Okay? How are you going to fulfill the requirements of UCC 3-306?
That's mandatory.
How are you going to fill the requirements and demonstrate that you're the holder in due course? You understand that to be the holder in due course, you got to give notice.
1-202.
Okay, so what kind of notice are you giving them?
A letter with the UCC-1 number in it.
Okay, but you just said you don't have to file a UCC. You was telling me you don't have to file a UCC-1.
I did not say that. You're putting words in my mouth. Run that back.
You just said you don't have to do.
Necessary.
You started the call off talking about.
You don't have to send a master bond to the Treasury. That's what I said. You don't have to do that until you have a property tax obligation.
You don't have to. You file a master bond if you're going to use a promissory note, but you do if you're going to use a bill of exchange, because the bill of exchange is a 3-party instrument. It needs a drawer and a drawee. A promissory note doesn't, and the IRS doesn't accept promissory notes. They don't accept them. It's right there on their website. You want me to show it to you?
Now, I didn't mention bonds or promissory notes. I said for property tax obligation, you will need to tender the treasurer mastery bond. Now, I would like to go on to the next point. I'd like to challenge you
There's
on.
only promissory notes and bills of
And why,
exchange. Them the only two types of negotiable.
why I don't think it matters.
All right,
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's say, right.
Go ahead.
So, listening to you for this hour and listening to you for the time that I did, let's see, how should I word this? Regardless of if the district court or the county civil court has jurisdiction over me or not, I have the right to. Let's say I didn't even read Gene Keating's transcript, which I got because of you. Thank you, my mentor. Appreciate you. Let's pretend I don't. Let's pretend I didn't read that. Now, I still have the right, regardless of they have jurisdiction over me or not, I still have the right to tender them with GSA bond or just offset the traffic ticket or the reckless driving, whatever it is. Am I right? So why does jurisdiction matter?
It doesn't matter. Okay, when
I know, thank you. That's what I want.
This is the thing you got to understand. I know you've probably been following me or whatever. That's acceptance for value. That is what I teach. You got to understand a lot of these people want to challenge jurisdiction. So I teach them how to do that too. But that's not what you do when you're discharging a debt. When you're discharging a debt, you're not challenging jurisdiction. You're just addressing the debt because there ain't any money. Why would you want to argue? This is the whole point of not arguing. You're not arguing anything. You're not traversing any charges or anything like that. Because why? Because there ain't any money to pay for anything with anyway. And that's what HJR 192 is about. They cannot require you to satisfy an obligation in any particular species of cash, currency, coin, or anything like that. You'll never see it in any contract. They'll just say lawful money of the United States or something like that. And that's why Walker Todd talked about in his affidavit that that's an archaic term that they got in there. Nobody's issuing any money. It's an exchange of credit. It's just credit. We have a credit-based system.
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, you're absolutely right about that. The jurisdiction don't matter. Now I understand what you're saying right now because you're absolutely correct. But you got people, they want to come in, you don't have jurisdiction over me. I got inundated with that.
Why are they doing that?
Because they don't understand how the system was set up. It wasn't set up to argue.
They didn't read. To me, it's simple as reading Gene Keating's transcripts to me and using those 3 bonds that he mentioned. That's what I would do in any civil criminal case where there is not a victim. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yes, definitely.
All right, my man. That's what I'm going to teach clients too. I appreciate that.
Y'all have no problem with none of that. I don't got any problem with any of that. My thing is when
one thing you did have a problem with. My bad, go ahead.
No, my thing was I'm saying when you get to a level of sophistication, you don't even need to do GSA bonds. You can make your own bonds. You know, it's just like GSA bonds.
You're correct.
Yeah, they general service. They standard forms that you're using. You can use them, but you don't have to. And you know where I got that? A banker explained that to me. He sat down and explained that to me. He said, these are standard forms. You can use them, but to make sure that all the proper information is on it. You can use your own. And on some of those forms, it tells you that. Like in publication 1212, it'll tell you that, in W9, the W9, certificate of foreign status, you can use that IRS form, or it says make your own form. It tells you that when you read the instructions. But it's about giving notice. It's like what he said in UCC 1-202. You got to give some form of notice. It does not require you to use the commercial chamber to give those notices. That's not a requirement. And you'll never hear me say that it is a requirement.
I got you. Mr. Jones, I got you. This is my last point, and then we can refer back to the Starving the System interview, which, in my opinion, that information can change your viewer's life, and they can stop being fans and just watching you for entertainment and never ever use the information. That's where I want to help people at. So let's use mortgages, for example, the most complex debt to offset or have paid free and clear. Let's use mortgages, for example. Now, I shouldn't be giving my business plan, but the more people that know this, the better. I want people to know this. You don't have to pay me $333. I'll tell you. Okay. So there's a law in Florida, like I mentioned. If you can Google it, you'll get it. It's in chapter 655. I have a right to get the bookkeeping accounting for that mortgage account. And I can use UCC 9-210 because a mortgage entails a collateral security as well, which is the actual mortgage security instrument. Cool. So then I will start my administrative process, which you like to use, to demand an accounting and demand that the debt be verified by them tendering an affidavit or an accounting proving. I like to use both, or proving that they loan money. And I'm going to use this with certified mail and a notary. So that's the start of my administrative process. I'm going to assume for the better that they don't answer. I got my notice of default, opportunity to cure, and my default notice. And all three of those letters are going to be vaguely the same. I might say like, just in case you didn't get it, or maybe it's another opportunity to remedy the situation, whatever I use. Now, I don't think getting rid of a mortgage, a negotiable instrument is necessary. You said that it is. Like, do you agree with all I just said now, or are you hell bent on you need a negotiable instrument?
Yeah, when you're doing a conditional acceptance, obviously you're not using a negotiable instrument because it's a conditional acceptance. You're basically, because that's what you're describing. You're describing a conditional acceptance. You're asking for an accounting, you're asking for things, and then you're basing your process based off the fact that they're not going to provide you with those things. Thus, they don't have standing to sue on debt.
Because they didn't loan money, but go ahead.
Okay, right. Now, if you've studied this seriously, okay, you will find that number one, that can label you as an enemy of the state right there, what you're doing. True, they can never substantiate any of the things that they're doing. They can't substantiate it. Right. When you do a secure party process,
that's why I'm so.
Well, when we do a secure party process, when you read your paperwork, you're agreeing to accept all claims lodged against your straw man. That's why you have to have the performance and give them the negotiable instrument. It's not an option. Now, if you haven't done a secure party process and you're saying, well, okay, I will conditionally accept your claim upon proof of claim, you could provide me X, Y, and Z. A lot of that, what you're saying, is in Tom Schaaf's Secret Banker's Manual, where in there they have affidavits that you tender to these people on credit card debts, on mortgages and things like that, where you give the person who can bind the corporation, usually he's the CEO or the CFO of that corporation, where you send him an administrative process. In it, it contains an affidavit that he can sign and return it back to you, and you will honor his claim upon the signing of that affidavit, based off the premise that all debts had to be attested to under penalty of perjury. This is what is talked about in 15 U.S.C. 1692G, where it's talking about verification of debt. The definition of verification is something attested to under penalty of perjury. Okay, so that is the whole basis of all debt. Well, and any type of process of which you're using a conditional acceptance is going to be predicated off of that, because you're asking them for information they can't possibly provide you. However, you got to protect
and based off that fact you just said, the mortgage obligation should be paid free and clear or moved away from my credit report. Just that simple to me. Truth is simple to me. You told me that.
Well, yeah, but let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. If you don't think I got experiences, let me give you the real deal when you get into doing this. When you get into doing this, first of all, every banking institution is different. They all don't respond the same way. Citibank don't respond the same way as Chase. Chase don't respond the same way as Bank of America. They all got their different ways that they're going to respond to all of this stuff. Usually in the beginning, if they don't know you, they're going to give you some sort of boilerplate document not signed by anyone, and here, get out of our face. But if you can demonstrate that you do know what you're doing, you might get some correspondence from somebody, some officer within their accounts receivable department, and will take your claim and what you're saying very seriously, or it gets directed down into the legal department, and they'll start, corresponding with you about it. All right, but just to sit here and think that you're going to send a letter requesting something, they will ignore your letter and then still try to foreclose on you and take you on in. Because the banks own the court system. I want you to understand that. The courts are using Federal Reserve notes too.
I do agree with that.
The banks own the court system. But they own it. The Federal Reserve owns everything in that system. The Federal Reserve owns it. Everything that's associated with Federal Reserve notes.
That's one thing. That's one thing I was aware of. I remember you was telling the story. A bank actually, called the SWAT team on you. They swatted you.
Yes.
And you told the story. You was like, can I help you, gentlemen? They all laughed or whatever. I'm fearless, Yusuf. I'm okay with that. I'm going
to tell you my opinion. The thing is this. You have to, I feel like the process of getting private, what people call this status correction, is a necessary step, because they operate heavily off presumptions, and you have to have something on record to rebut any presumptions they have about your status and your understanding of the system. You got to have that on record. Then you can, all this stuff that you're talking about, you can do it. A lot of people have done that before you. You had the first person to come in with conditional acceptances. Like, for instance, I'm about to read you something right here. This is from,
I'm listening.
this is from Gene Keating's, it's called the Securitization 101. That's the name of the document. It's called Gene Keating's Securitization 101. Now, in this document, it was a letter that you write to a creditor or alleged creditor after you've sent him a promissory note for satisfaction of an obligation, and then he sends it back saying that we don't accept this form of payment. Well, the reason that I like this letter, it is a letter that's been around for a long time, but when Gene Keating wrote it, it is replete with a lot of statutory codes and elements in it that you can go and study and research for yourself so you'll know what to request from them. Okay? And so I'm going to read this to everyone. It's called, Dear Mr. Doe, I'm writing regarding your recent letter in regard to your client XYZ Corporation being the alleged creditor in the amount of $1,100. Your alleged client has waived his status as a creditor when they accepted my tender of payment under UCC 3-409A and B and UCC 3-604A. They did not adjust their accounting ledger to reflect settlement and closure of the accounts receivable side of the accounting ledger. By way of review, I sent the woman in the credit department of the creditor a negotiable instrument on April 24th in the form of a commercial note draft as an order to pay under UCC 3-104E. This may be treated either as a promise to pay or an order to pay. Since she has not returned the instrument to me, she has obviously chosen the latter, an order to pay. Under UCC subsection 3-104F of the UCC, a draft is the equivalent of a check and may be securitized or monetized by direct deposit in a commercial checking, time thrift, or savings account. Under Title 12 of the United States Code 1813 L1, when you deposit it, it becomes the equivalent of money as outlined under Section 1813 L1. And people need to read Title 12, 1813 L1, what it talks about deposits, so you can understand what constitutes a deposit. That's what's happening at the foreclosure table when you sign that promissory note. You're making a deposit at a financial institution. The closing table is a financial institution. The collection manager from the credit department of the creditor did, however, send me a letter saying that she did not accept promissory notes. She is, however, precluded by public policy under ACR 192 and Title 31 of the United States Code, Section 5118D2. That's where they codified the rescission of the gold clause.
Mm-hmm.
And the Fair Debt Practices Act, aka Consumer Protection Act, at 15 U.S.C. subsection 1601 and 1693, from demanding payment in any specific coin or currency of the United States, even though she has not done so. Section D2 of Title 31, 1518 states that an obligation governed by gold coin is discharged on payment dollar for dollar by a United States coin or currency that is legal tender at the time of payment. The narrow view that money is limited to legal tender is rejected under Section 1-20124 of the UCC. It is not limited to United States dollars. See official comments under Section 3-104 of the UCC under the definition of money. The woman at the creditor has failed to perform her duty as a fiduciary trustee of the account. I've done a notarial protest against her and the account for non-acceptance and payment under Section 3-501 and 3-505AB of the UCC, which creates the evidence or presumption of a dishonor. She has knowingly or unknowingly become the debtor and myself the creditor by operation of commercial and administrative law. Also worthy of note, if she's going to treat the note as a liability instrument, she has to present it to me for payment, may be chargeable under 3501 of the UCC, which he has also failed to do. I'm losing my voice. To the extent that she is in dishonor for non-acceptance and non-payment by notarial protest on the administrative side. There has been a discharge of the debt in its entirety under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act within the 30-day time frame as mandated by law. And he gets on to how he's been teaching, but you can read this stuff, and he this letter, and that was just about the end of the letter, but he tells you codes to go look for and search. The FR 2241, I think, the Federal Reserve, these call reports and everything that you have to call when you, all these documents that you ask for when you're going to do a conditional acceptance, because that's what he's talking about. He's not talking about a full-out acceptance.
Now, Yusuf L, I got respect for you, and I rock with you for real. I remember our first 10 minutes of the call, you threw a jab at me saying, I'm trying to sound, intellectual. I'm trying to sound like I mastered this. Out of respect, reading that letter is cool. You can like send that to him and sound smart, or you master banking. But all that letter is 15 U.S.C. 1666 billing error. That's all that is.
Well, yeah.
And you and I know.
Yeah, but the thing about it is the people need some sort of template. I wouldn't send that letter just like that. I'm going to rewrite this letter. I'm going to study each and every one of those code sections he's talked about, and I'm going to rewrite this letter in my own way because it may not even apply to me. A lot of things in here that he did doesn't have any application. I'm not a teacher. He talks about he teach commercial law. I didn't teach commercial law. I'm going to take that out of the letter. He used the promissory note. Most likely, I'm going to use the International Bill of Exchange. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to change the whole tenor of this letter around and put it in my own words. My point in reading this letter was direct people's attention to the code section that he's referencing, so you can start understanding how you can substantiate your position with some sort of law.
Right. Now, I'd be a demon to disagree with all what you just said. Now, I don't want to wear you out because you're going to finish your live. You got another caller after me. I got one more question for you. This is a good one.
Yeah, go ahead.
On your Starving the System interview 10 years ago, you said, it was beautifully said, with some good skills, a notary, and certified mail, you can get rid of your mortgage, your car loan, and live the life that the Most High, which has made us a God, because I believe I'm a God. You have taught me the Bible verses that said I'm a God.
Right.
We're supposed to live the life that we're intended to live. Now, when you help people out, with those packages, did you use negotiable instruments, or did you just
always use negotiable instruments?
2605?
Always use negotiable instruments.
You always did?
Always used it. And the first thing, my process was first, I would do a verification of debt requests. Like, for instance, because people come to you with different things. Like, somebody might be coming to me and let's say they get in foreclosed on next week. Okay, well, the first thing I got to do is I got to stall the foreclosure. So under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they had to cease and desist all attempts to foreclose or collect the debt once you've challenged it. So I'd hit them with a verification of debt request first. Send it by a notary, certified mail, and ask them to verify the debt. Then after that, I'm going to, within that, I may have something that is conditional upon the verification of the debt that they provide me with a 30-day payoff of the debt. See, the reason why, let me tell you why, and because this is coming from experience, all right? When you go into a unlawful detainer or a foreclosure, you can't argue title. You can't argue title. What they're looking for is performance. They're looking for performance. So you come in and say, well, they're not really the owners, because the proper response in a foreclosure is you got denial of a landlord-tenant relationship. They're going to say, well, because the bank is saying we own the property. He's a tenant at sufferance. We want him removed from the property. That's what they're saying. You coming in saying, no, you don't own the property. I own the property. And there ain't no landlord-tenant relationship. Well, we have this contract right here, okay, that says that you agreed to perform and pay these people $3,000 a month for the next 30 years. And the court is going to look for that performance. So if you offer a tender of performance, that changes the whole discussion. Now, there's no issue of did you perform. The issue now is, was the type of performance that you gave, was it acceptable or not? And within the bounds of the law, it is. So why wouldn't I do that? There isn't any money. Are you there?
And I'm so glad you mentioned the denial. I'm here. I'm so glad you mentioned the denial of landlord-tenant relationship. A while ago, you gave case law for that. I think it's I'm looking at it now. Ghana versus
HSBC. Ghana versus HSBC is a very good case to study.
BBC, yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that again. You refreshed my memory of that. Because Yusuf, I'm not gonna lie, I'm an honest man. I've been out here trying to grill you and test my profits. But it was my plan to help people with just using verification and affidavit.
There's nothing. Let me say this to you. There's nothing wrong with what you're attempting to do. All I'm saying is you're going to get some experience, a lot of experience in doing it, because the reason I'm teaching right now is, man, look, I did all of that. I started out with conditional acceptances. If I showed you my client list of all the people I wrote everybody's letter. I had a client list of 100 people. And every time they hired me to do something for them, I wrote their information from scratch because that's what was most effective. I didn't use boilerplate documents. I would actually, they paid me money, not sit down with a blank piece of paper, and I tell them, give me the letter that the bank wrote you, and then give it to me, and I'd write the letter and everything from scratch, and then put in whatever I needed in there. But it'd be a custom tailored letter for every customer that I did. In the beginning, I did a lot of, and I guess I'll show you, I think I still have a lot of this stuff. I'll try to show you in a webinar on SBC University. See, I can see some of the old stuff that I used to write to people. And I started out in the beginning doing verification of debt requests that were 17 pages long, and validation of debt requests and things like that. I don't do that shit no more. If you can't put everything you need on one piece of paper, you don't know what you're doing.
No more than one page, right?
Yeah, you need to do it on one page. You don't need to do all that stuff. And 1 and 2, 17 pages trying to write a whole book. Ain't nobody reading all that shit, no way. So you need to do everything on one piece of paper. But in the beginning, I was doing stuff like that because I was copying other people. I get on the internet, find a validation of debt request, and look at it, read it. Yeah, this look pretty good. This look like what I'm trying to say. And then fill it out and then send it off. That's what a lot of you out there are doing. All right, but you're going to get to the point that when you understand what you're doing and understand what it is that you require them to do, because every circumstance is different. You have time requirements. Sometimes people, they in the beginning, they 6 months in front of it. Sometimes a lot of people, they're going to come to you, they foreclosing next week. Some people going to come to you and they've already been foreclosed on and they want you to help. What are you going to do in that situation when they already trying to go to court and get you evicted from the home? So now I got to come in and say, okay, how I'm going to stop this? I'm going to say, okay, fade of going to the court and say, demand to vacate order or to dismiss case for lack of subject matter jurisdiction, and then go in there and try to use the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act to get them to verify the debt. I got to remove it out of this state court and then get it into a superior court so we can address the issue of title. There's a lot of things you're going to be contending with all of this stuff, man. Everything is not going to just be, I sent them a letter and it's going to go away. That's all I'm trying to say. Nah, that's not happening.
I do comprehend everything you just said.
Right.
And all the examples you gave me, foreclosed next week, foreclosed today, already been foreclosed. All those things you said had a common denominator. They must, the financial institution must still verify the debt, though, Yusuf. I can learn. See, I'm pretty intelligent. I can learn concepts pretty quickly. So I'll learn as I go with all the extra stuff.
But I'm going to tell you, while you're correct, what I'm trying to get you ready for is how the procedural maneuvers that they use. These attorneys is good at what they do, man. They've been doing it a long time. So they got ways that, first of all, the number one thing is try to ignore what you're doing and try to move forward and just ignore everything that you're doing and say, okay, we foreclosing on you. I'm going to put the ad in the newspaper. Then the ad comes out the newspaper. Next thing you know, they done held you into court and they trying to prof all this evidence into the courtroom saying, here's my copy of the ad I put in the newspaper. Here's the copy of my 30-day dunning letter that I sent him. He didn't respond to it. Here's a copy of the accounting that shows he hadn't made a payment in the last 6 months. This is the shit that they're going to put into evidence. You got to object to all of that shit. Objection, Your Honor, that's hearsay. We need something because the bank is not there in the courtroom. They don't have firsthand knowledge. All that attorney has the affidavit that attorney is going to put into evidence. All it's going to say is that he attests that he has firsthand knowledge of the administrative process that he did against you. That's all he can attest to. But he can't attest to whether or not this mortgage is authentic that he's putting in. None of that. The bank has to be there to do that, and they're not going to be there. So you're also going to need.
Hearsay, and I read.
You're also going to.
I read that on court tricks and traps.
That's true. You're also going to have to be able to handle yourself in court because sometimes it might come to that. So if you're going to be helping people, you need to be able to handle yourself in court too. So, and the reason I got so much practice with this, because a lot of people, in the beginning, I had like 17 people quit claiming their property to me that was in foreclosure. So I had standing and an interest because my name was on title. And so now I could go into court and argue it. So I'd go into court and they say, what is your interest in this? I say, I got title to the property or I have, possession of it. And so that gave me an interest. You know, you got to be a real party in interest. And I went in and argued a lot of this
They
stuff.
give you right to talk for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff I'm telling you comes from experience. It's not me just, you know, some theory or something like that. It's like, look, this is I hear what you're saying with those, and what you're saying is absolutely correct. Not one thing that you said was a lie, okay? But the reality, okay, of it is that you got to be prepared to get down, because we are living in an adversarial system, and they are going to do that.
Right.
Because these houses are the foundation of freedom. That's the last, and if they, as long as they can keep us into mortgages and stuff like that, they're gonna have the American people in some sort of slavery. If all the mortgages in the country were paid for and people didn't have to pay for where they stay, this would be a different world. If people didn't have to pay a mortgage or rent, man, please.
Right, that is true. That's actually my goal. I want to spread this knowledge so our brothers and sisters can live free. Not like for free, because this is a universe of exchange, but free of bank obligations that has already been an exchange that has already taken place. Now, just like you, I'm not getting exhausted, but I'm not going to hold up the line. I got one more question for you. It was two, but the first one may be too personal, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. Now, with your interview with Elohim, you mentioned that you didn't charge anybody nowhere over $500. I want to charge pretty cheap too. Mine is $333 because I like the number 3.
Right.
What did you charge for helping people out with their mortgage?
Well, it depended on what it was. Majority of the people came in. It was, you know, it was just helping people. They wanted me to write a letter or something from like a debt collector. So that was the majority of people who came through the door. Yeah, be a debt collector or something like that. And you just use the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. You know, you just write them a letter, you know, and you know, and the same thing if they go to court, that's overwhelming majority of people, you know, came through the door. It'd be some sort of 30-day dunning letter. So if they're a third-party debt collector, they don't have any right to collect the debt anyway. So that's why
you don't owe them shit.
You don't owe them anything. So the thing is you writing a letter to them, and you're basically just saying, hey, look, you know, if you claim that, you know, that you that you are indeed a creditor of mine, then sign this affidavit. It would be something like out of Tom Schaaf's The Banker's Secret Manual. You just go over there and look at the back of the Banker's Secret Manual. They have all those letters and forms you can use. Some very, very good ones. Some very, very good ones you can use for third-party debt collectors, mortgages, and things like that. When you write these people, Tom Schaaf probably got the best letters on the internet as far as his understanding of the UCC and letters that you write. But that's a good place to start, the Banker's Secret Manual by Tom Schaaf, especially if you're going to get into doing conditional acceptances, because that's what he's all about. He's all about, see, the reason I asked you about fraud or breach of contract, because fraud, you have to prove intent. Fraud is the hardest thing in the world to prove, but it's breach of contract. And the breach of contract is going into the accounting of whether or not you really and truly made a loan of substance or in exchange for something. When they did make a loan, what they did was they monetized your signature on the negotiable instrument. See, if you really understand how debt is monetized, it just makes sense. You know, if you got a promise to pay, like for $100, you can discount that and sell it on the market for $70. And somebody will give you $70
that is correct.
and Federal Reserve notes for it. So that's all they're doing. They're doing money changing. That's why they call them money changers. They're changing it from one form of debt currency to another, and they're discounting it in order to make it more acceptable for these people to give me these Federal Reserve notes in exchange for this obligation where you're agreeing to come in and perform every month, pay your house note, and with interest every month. Somebody will buy that from someone. And that's what you got to understand. Once you understand that's where the value comes from. It's a game.
I just use GAAP though. 12 USC 1831N. I give them a deposit. They owe me back the liability. That they're taught me that banks don't loan money. That was the principle for me.
Well,
I'm not saying you're incorrect about the discounting.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Because you have the experience with it. I don't.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You know, it's like a GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. All federally insured banks are required to use it. That requires the matching principle. They have to record an offsetting liability with an asset with a liability, because any negotiable instrument is any deposit you make is an asset and a liability simultaneously. They had to put it in their books as an asset because you gave it to them, but it's a liability because they got to give it back. So simultaneously appears the same way on their books. So they do this off-balance sheet accounting where they remove the accounts payable and just start hitting you with the accounts receivable. And that's why all these documents that you're going to do maybe some sort of subpoena ducis tecum. That's what you would do at a subpoena ducis tecum for documents. These are the documents that you would require them to provide that would demonstrate the accounting that went behind the scenes that show that they didn't really make a loan. And then they fill out this 1099A, which is an abandonment, that you abandon that claim on that balance sheet, that you abandon it. It's a little bit more in depth than what I'm
Jones, one more thing.
describing.
I don't mean to cut you off. But I'm trying to hold the thought in my head while you're talking. I'm trying to remember it, so I'm going to cut you off respectfully.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not looking at the chat, but I pray your viewers approve of this conversation. I have learned something that they can use. But I want to ask you one more important thing, and I bet you nobody publicly on the air has asked you this. Now, before I came into the banking knowledge when I was working a job, I came into knowledge of subject to and wholesaling. I did those. But subject to, I was going to take over their mortgage payments for them. But now that I know banks and banking and banks don't loan money, and I'm the master of that, I'm going to just, I was wondering, were you acquired all your Airbnbs and all your assets to earn your freedom, which I'm trying to do?
I did some things like that. Yes, I did. I'll say that. I did that.
Right. That was the business model of mine. I'm
gonna give you some inside information. First of all, you can't do properties that they are actively, heavily pursuing. If they got an area that they gentrifying and they trying to buy up all the houses in there or something like that, some area that they've really focused on, and you got a house in that area, you got a real uphill battle against you because they already got plans for that area and they're gonna get it done by hook or crook. All right, now if you find some neighborhood or something that maybe it's an older neighborhood or something been around for a long time, you're able to get a property in that, you got a better chance of obtaining that property without a fight, is what I'm trying to say, without putting up a big fight. And all this comes from, like I said, from the bank, because that's who you're going to be fighting with. And that bank got the power of the court behind them. Now, subject to is definitely this is why I try to tell people about squatting. You should never squat in a house. You should always go after the deed to the house, and you do that by going into the tax assessor's record first, and then finding out who the owner. Like if you see a vacant house, you go to the tax assessor's record, find out who the owner is, and then send him a letter and say, "Look, are you interested in selling this home?" And you'll be surprised at the number of people that will respond to you. And, because a vacant house is a liability to the owner because it can be vandalized. They're paying property taxes on it. They have to upkeep it, cutting the grass and things like that. It's not making any money for anyone. So it's a liability. So you may find somebody motivated enough to do some business with you in a situation like that. Or if you have a motivated seller, you're about to lose it or something like that, then a subject to type of process will probably be good where, you catch up the arrears of the property, bring it back whole, and then, have them move out, and then they have to quit claim it over to you and you have title to the property. But the mortgage is no longer in your name, and then you can do whatever process you want to do against that mortgage. But, it's a lot of different creative ways that you can do things. But definitely, I will say that me having a background in real estate investing helped me tremendously in doing some of these processes, because I didn't get caught up with all the foolishness that a lot of people are out there doing, squatting in houses and getting put on the news and different things like that for squatting in houses. You don't do that. There are other ways of doing it that's going to have a lot less headache and give you a lot more support lawfully, where you can substantiate your position using the law. Always get the title to the property.
Mm-hmm.
That should be your first goal. Get the
now,
deed.
Mr. Jones, I know I said one more thing 20 times. This is so fun, though, and I'm so grateful for this call. Now, I was kind of afraid to drop the laws that I know, like the 2605 qualified written request, that's Section E. Now, even if they change the laws and put them somewhere else, they still have to notify the public, right? Like, I don't have to fear them moving the laws around, changing laws, where I can't find the account no more.
They change and move laws around all the time. That's when you go to law.justia Every time you go to a state code, you got a different year where they've updated the code. So things get updated all the time. Just make sure you're using the updated law. A lot of times they'll move something, like in the UCC, they'll just move something from one place to another, like they did with UCC 1-207. They moved it to 1308. It's the same thing, but they just moved it
Right.
around. So yeah, you got to stay abreast of things like that and make sure that anytime you're quoting a statute, it's still good law. But UCC codes change all the time,
Right.
especially if you're reading some old documentation, like that old Gene Keating letter. You need to verify that all those codes are still in the same place and see that they haven't been moved around.
I agree with that. Okay. And Mr. Jones, man, you put in a lot of effort to this conversation. You gave me some major sauce with the sub 2 using offsetting debt. I know I could do it, but hearing it from your mouth, man, it gave me sort of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a guarantee in my future business venture. So I pray that all of us on this call get rich. It's your boy Mondo, and Yusuf, I appreciate this call, brother.
I appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. All right, let's go to the next call. Let me dip over to area code 205. 205. Where is 205? Alabama. Didn't I just do Alabama? I thought I just came out of Alabama. Didn't I just come out of Alabama? Is this Alabama 205 3582?
All right, what's going on?
Hey, what's happening, man? What's going on?
All right. Let me ask you a question real quick. I remember, I think it was a minute ago, you had said that you had filed. I think the last conversation you were having on with the previous caller about doing. Hold on. All right, about you getting the quick claim deed and you coming in after the real part of the interest, right?
Right.
Okay, dude. No one asked me this because you mentioned that you done something wrong as it relates to you filing your private negotiable instruments in court. So my question is basically what you should have done when you said that you didn't do it right. What you should have done was like the direct presentation to the judge.
Well,
and leave it out the public, right?
Well, not. I don't know what you're talking about. When you say I did wrong, when usually you're going to give everything goes to the court, clerk of court. Negotiable instruments, bonds, all that stuff goes to the clerk of court. On the federal level, the fiscal clerk. I don't know if y'all know who that is. That's who would get the bonds on it. But it's called, the clerk of court is going to get it. But I'm not really sure. Let me let you re-ask your question and make sure I'm understanding what you're asking me. I don't know if I really understand what you're saying.
All right, guys. All right. So let me rewind. All right. Like, so you've had filed some documents that locked the court up. Now I was thinking you were talking about your private instrument. You was like, I shouldn't have done that.
I ain't say that. When did I say that? You might got me mixed up with somebody else.
No. It was in an old webinar. You had.
Oh, it was an old webinar.
You locked up the proceedings like for a little while.
You know what? I know exactly what you're talking about. It was a case in Paulding County. I had discharged the debt, and they tried to and they couldn't move forward with the foreclosure or anything like that. And the way that I did it, I was so thorough with everything that I did. Let me see if I can just break it down for you. And I do have this case. I guess I'll show it in a webinar and show people the filings and everything I filed. The thing is that you have to have evidence to substantiate everything that you're doing. So when you do your administrative process, everything has to be documented precisely and supported by affidavit. The certificate of non-response needs to be supported by affidavit. The 3811 forms need to be exhibits. And, everything was in place. I had something to demonstrate everything that I did and verified through that. And so they tried to do a removal to another county, and they couldn't do that because you have to conduct the proceedings in the county where the property is located. and they were trying to move it to another county where the property wasn't located. They couldn't get around it. They just couldn't get around it. Eventually, it was for somebody else. She let the bank come in, and somebody gets possession of it, of the property. Possession is very, very important. But this was early on when I very first started doing this, and I didn't know everything that I was doing. I knew how to do an administrative process, but I was just getting familiar with the court system and arguing stuff in court. And the case did get locked up. I think that's what you're talking about. And there are a couple of things I should have done differently. But go ahead.
No, sorry, cut you off. Go ahead, Pete.
No, I was just going to say, the utilization of statutory codes, you got to be careful when you use that. I didn't know that early on. That was probably the biggest thing that stands out in my mind, is that either you're going to use a private process or you're going to use a public process. If you're going to be utilizing the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and all of that, those are public remedies that you can use. Private remedies is when you're using the negotiable instrument and you're trying to satisfy the obligation, but either you can't start mixing the two. People try to mix the two, and you can't mix the two. And that's something else that I was, doing early on, that I didn't understand what I was doing. But other than that, I had, pretty good knowledge of the code sections and everything that I was using, fade answer, business letter. I had to substantiate every single thing that I did, and they couldn't get around it. They couldn't get around it. It locked up the court. And that's why, when I see where a lot of people do administrative processes, that's the problem I see. They don't understand the importance of the notary. They don't understand the importance of the 3811 forms. They really don't understand what evidence is. That evidence, evidence has to be attested to under penalty of perjury. When they said Donald Trump had evidence of voter tampering, and they keep repeatedly coming back saying he didn't have any evidence, he had 1,000 affidavits. That's evidence. He got 1,000 people ready to swear and testify in court. What do you mean you don't have any evidence? Right. But they telling people they didn't have any evidence. Testimony, sworn testimony is evidence. Ain't that what they give you to send you to jail? Go find somebody to tell on you? That's evidence.
True.
So where's your evidence? Your 3811 forms, that's the post office attesting to something. Your notary is a witness. And anything else you can add into there, to show everything that you've done. And, that you have an agreement of the parties. And that you can substantiate a summary judgment. You're looking for a summary judgment. But they don't want to do it. A lot of times they don't want to do it. They prefer, they'll tell you, take it to the appellate level, let them decide on it. And you be going back and forth with these courts. And so they came up with this thing called the vapor money theory. Now, this is why I'm telling people also to put in as an exhibit the affidavit of Walker Todd, because he's an expert witness on negotiable instruments, and he worked for the Federal Reserve. So how are they going to go against that? If they saying, well, this vapor money theory, they claim that you was never issued any money. They claim, but these theories have not been substantiated. I've read all the opinions these judges have said, and it boils down to the fact that people don't have any evidence to substantiate what they're saying. You're claiming that they didn't loan you any money. Okay, well, do you have a CPA who audits banks that can substantiate that, not just something coming out of your mouth? Or are you quoting something from some sort of publication?
So let me ask you something. So, when you move to summary judgment, they say like an equity pleading. If you do the proper process as it relates to, the notice, opportunity to cure, and, the default, you get the certificate of non-response from the notary, you move to summary judgment at that point as it relates to
because
equity. So you saying like they'll make you appeal it?
Yeah, they may make you appeal it because they don't want to be the one to. First of all, they don't want any case law on the books to substantiate anything we're doing. They don't want any case law of anything. And I'm gonna tell you a preferred method that I try to use. Okay, they don't want to set any precedents on anything, and they definitely don't want to be the first one to do it. They'll probably lose their position. Okay, so yeah, you take it to the appellate court and let the appellate court decide. They're going to call everything that you're doing like some sort of theory or something like that is a vapor money theory. What I try to do is you try to find ways of winning that's acceptable to them. And usually, if you go through PASA and or the docket sheet, and you find cases where they settled out of court, the ones that got settled out of court, those are the pleadings that you want to read, because you want to read what made this bank settle out of court, because that's where everything, all the resolution occurs out of court. They're not allowing case law to be set on any of these things we're doing. It's usually going to be settled out of court or in some kind of other private fashion, or there's going to be some other reason that they give you the remedy, but they're never going to expressly state, well, he won this case because he provided them with a negotiable instrument and it set off this debt. You can't think like that. And that's where a lot of people, they get lost in the sauce because they think they're going to do it like that. Your thinking has to be along the lines, how can I help these people get rid of this debt and not have it on the public record for everybody to see? That's what they want. And that's going to have to happen, because they're not letting no other kind of way get fly by. It's not happening like that.
Yeah, because I know you mentioned about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they're not going to come out and just explain it if that was the case. I know you mentioned the court, and satisfaction. And just recently, I got the the PDF on that. Now let me ask you this: so when individuals dealing with all this stuff is contract, you going to just like a dealership, right? And you're doing the set off of a contract. These, whether a particular situation, that one get in, have latches, right? Latches appear like, let's say, like if somebody was doing like an automobile or whatever, and you go into equity court, right? That time frame, technically, would it just?
Yeah, exactly. That's what latches is. Latches is you didn't do something within a certain time, a certain reasonable amount of time. Under equity, there's an equitable principle. He who sleeps on his rights, has none. You can't sleep on your rights. So you got to, time is of the essence. So yeah, that's what the administrative process involves. It puts time frames on things where people are expected to respond within a reasonable amount of time if they have a duty to respond, and that response is not governed from some sort of statutory provision. Because like when you're doing a verification of debt request, they got 21 days to answer. So you have to give them 21 days. And if they don't respond in that time frame, then your administrative process has to, the time frames have to be with that. But that's what that's about. It's an equitable principle. You're looking for an equitable remedy about all of this, because that's what this is. These are equitable remedies. There isn't any money.
Right.
Expecting somebody to pay for something and there isn't any money. It's a slave system is what it is. Because Federal Reserve notes is like a slave script, because that's what they expect you to pay in, but they can't require you to pay that. They don't make loans, y'all. Right. Anybody can sit down and study this. Anybody can sit down and study this and see the truth. It's not that difficult. You just look at your federal. There's no money. There's no money. There isn't any money. It's all dead paper. We dealing in paper. Flipping around, changing paper. It's a paper game.
Yeah, when I first did the UCC1, Robert Kelly had done I didn't know, what I was doing, at the time. He passed last year. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah, somebody told me Robert Kelly. I got a chance to meet him, thankfully. I was in Portland, Oregon, and I got a chance to meet Robert Kelly before he passed, man. And I told him, what it's like meeting a rock star, because I was like, I'm like, wow, man, he's he's one of the editors of the American Bulletin, right?
Bulletin, right?
Yeah, American Bulletin, man, they put out a lot of information, cracking the code and all that kind of stuff, that really in the beginning, because a lot of this information started up there in the Northwest area of the country, out in Oregon, California. That's where a lot of, Montana Freeman, all that was out there. So that's kind of where that was the hotbed for a lot of this information. And years ago, that's where all the information was coming out of.
Yep.
Do I remember what?
McCutcheon's Inc. They used to sell a lot of material out of American Bulletin too.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That book, man. It's like it helped a lot of people get an understanding, and it's a book. American Bulletin, man. A lot of prisoners, they're familiar with the American Bulletin because they were sending a lot of stuff into the prisons and stuff too, and before they cut them off. But they are responsible. They definitely are, like a pillar in this community of the redemptionists and everything. And Robert Kelly passing, my condolences to his family. He definitely was a patriot and an individual who I respected a lot, and I'm very thankful that for him, all the work that he's done and he contributed to this space.
Right.
I can't speak highly enough of it. Can't really speak highly enough of it.
Right. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna get off. Like the last, brother who, you drop some jewels because you're gonna need to know procedure dealing with this stuff. You know what I mean? Because when you go into these courts, these people deal with procedures. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And not knowing, they go drag you, dude.
They beat people procedurally a lot of times because we be concentrated on the substance and facts and all of that, but they beating you procedurally. They know how to beat you procedurally,
Right.
and we got to, and that's what, if you're going to go into these courts, you got to study that. But like I said, what you really want to get is resolution and never have to go to court. That's one of the rules. Do not participate in public controversy. Stay out of their courts. If at all possible, do everything you can to stay out of court. Be proactive with your
Yeah, but would you agree if
process.
you get not to cut you off real quick, but if you agree if you given a negotiable instrument as you're doing the start off, you don't have to litigate that in court.
Most likely you will have to litigate it, but if you get to that point that you have to, sometimes you might not to. I got a house, I didn't have to litigate it. I got one I'm in right now. I didn't litigate it. So it happens is all I'm trying to say. It definitely happens, man. Listen,
Right. So,
discharges happen all the time, not in huge bulks. Let's say 100 people try to discharge a debt. I'll probably say about 10% of them get discharged. Discharges happen all the time, but it just don't happen in mass like people like to, kind of make people think they do. You
right.
got in the vast majority of cases, you're going to have to kind of fight for it. But there are those cases where you probably just send a negotiable instrument off and they get discharged right off the bat, you just get discharged, house, that happens, you know what I'm saying? So it's definitely something worth trying is my point. Because you don't know, you might be that one. Man, my house just got discharged, $1.2 million, just free and clear. It happens. It happens.
Wow. You know what? You be thinking about that? I know miracles do happen, but I just look at it like you're going to have to, like you say, you have to move for summary judgment and get it done like that.
Summary judgment means there's no material issue of fact, which is evidenced by your certificate of
Right.
non-response. They didn't respond to any of your correspondence. That means they stipulated to all the facts of the correspondence and you want the judge to rule on it. And you put in your exhibits and these are the things I want you to rule on. They didn't answer, meaning they're not arguing. There's no material issue of fact. I move for summary judgment. And I want you to rule on the facts that have appeared. And here are the facts. So apply the law to the facts. That's it. Hey man, let me take another call. All right, peace. Let me go to area code. What area code? I'm gallivanting around the country today. Let's go over to. Damn, I'm trying to get another one. I keep going to these same states, man. These same states. Well, hell, you next in line. Let me Florida. Florida.
Hello?
You on the air? Florida.
Oh, that's what's up, man. Finally, I got through.
What's going on? What you got for me?
How you doing, man? How's it? Not much, man. I'm glad to actually have been patched through finally, man. Been a long time, but the first time I'm actually been patched through. I'm at the Home Depot right now getting some 5-3.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So basically, I've been listening to you, man. I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate everything that you've been doing for all of us fighting out there,
I
Appreciate
appreciate.
your movement.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you. You know, sometimes I can't believe as many people listen to me as they do. You know, I'm like, damn. Yeah. But I appreciate all of you
Yeah.
too, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate all of you.
yeah, for sure, brother. Yeah, I've been listening to you since shit, man, since the Angela Stark days, man. Since you started in, I want to say the Starbucks. Remember the Starbucks?
Yeah, the Starbucks. Wait, yeah, I was talking about that earlier. I was in Starbucks. You've been listening to me back since then?
Since then, man. Since then. Since Crenshaw and I forgot the other street.
Rosecrans and Central. Rosecrans and Central. It's at the corner.
Yeah,
There's a Starbucks at the
that's
corner of
what's up, man.
Rosecrans and Central in Compton.
Yep, that's it right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. I'm just basically. I wanted to talk to you. I just bought my first home, thank God, here in Florida, Ocala, and
Right.
I got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage for 30 new construction. I still have not filed my UCC-1. I haven't done the process because I'm a big believer in learning everything before I take action. I don't want to take action blindly and get in trouble with it.
Right.
So my thing is I always go behind you and I read everything. Like cracking the code, redemption manual,
Right.
acceptance of value. What does acceptance of value mean? Law of redemption. So I got all these documents and I'm just reading them back and back to back. But my question to you is, can you point me in the right direction to learn and read about mortgages and to discharge mortgages? Because that's my next plan is to discharge my mortgage. And since the other brothers that were just on before me were talking about the topic, I kind of figured to keep on talking about the same topic.
Well, I always direct people to creditors and their bonds because that is a document. First of all, it contemplates that you've
I got
already
that.
you've already done a secure party process, but it's just really telling you how to do the
Hmm.
administrative process civilly to discharge a debt. Man, it's very, very detailed. I don't know why people don't can't read it and see that's what it's doing. I guess I'm gonna have to do a webinar on that and really, really explain it to people so they can see exactly how this is discharging a debt. It's any kind of debt. You know, creditors and their bonds, the first
Hmm.
part is showing you how to discharge like mortgages and credit cards. And the second part is showing you how to
Hmm.
discharge a criminal case. So that's what it's about. But it's a very good, gives you a very good foundation into understanding how to commence an administrative process to discharge a debt with. So I would tell people to start there, or
Okay.
you can also start with uh, using your exemption and the exemption by Moses Washington. Those two documents are good for
Hmm.
beginners. They're real good for beginners. It's called the exemption and using your exemption by Moses Washington.
I
Th-
got those.
those two
Yeah, I got
documents,
those. I read those religiously.
yeah, those are good. I mean, in them, he even got examples of a bill of exchange, a promissory note. There's also
Hmm.
there's another document on my website. I guess I'm gonna have to. I don't know the name of it right off the bat. Next time I come on, just remind me.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna look it up or attend the class tonight. Let me make an announcement real quick. I got to get off because
Okay.
I got class at 6 o'clock. Secure Party Creditor class on SBC University. It's going to be at 6 o'clock. So if you're a member of SBC University, start heading over to the website because I'm having class at 6 o'clock. I meant to be off on here, but that's where I'm headed next after
Yeah.
this. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna be there. Yeah, yeah. I have creditors in their bonds. I read it religiously and using the exemption. Watch what's his name, Moses. Whatever I forgot his last name. But yeah, you know what it is. I think a lot of us are missing basically the mechanics behind what to do, and I think it'll be very enlightening for all of us if we touch on that,
Okay.
especially on the mechanics.
I'll touch
That
on
would
it. I'll tell
definitely
you
help
what,
a
y'all
lot of
come over to
people out.
SBC University. I'll do it right now. Y'all come over there and I'll show you how to
Hmm.
discharge this debt right now. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to explain it. All right. Anyway, I got to get off, y'all.
Awesome, man.
That's it. I appreciate the
All right,
call,
my brother.
brother.
Yeah, you take it easy. Thank you, man.
Okay. Okay, y'all, I got to get off.
Yeah.
I got to get to a webinar at 6 o'clock. So I got to get off. I lost track of time. But if you're a member of SPC University, or if you're interested, go over and pay the $69. That's for a full month. Okay, where you can go and sit with me. I'm on there. I try to be on there at least 4 to 5 times a week. Okay, and you can sit and listen. I'm gonna show you all of this stuff of what we're talking about over there on SPC University. Okay, so go to spcuniversity.com. Just join. That's all you do. Then push. As soon as you get on the dashboard, it's gonna say webinar. Just click the banner, and it's gonna give you the login links and all of that. Really easy to get into the webinar. Okay. With that being said, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit your notification bell for everything so that they will come. You need to like it. I appreciate the likes. It's going to help the analytics of the channel. And I also definitely appreciate all the donations and all of the support all of you have been providing to me. Get on over to SPC University right now, okay? And I will see you tomorrow. Same bad net time, same bad. Wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah. See you tomorrow. Peace.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.